That basilica will be open until midnight today and tomorrow for the faithful to file in to try to catch a glimpse of Pope Francis. And then on Friday, the basilica will close at 7 p.m, ready for that funeral to start on Saturday morning.
Recapping the top story, consumer inflation has slowed in line with market expectations. Stats SA data shows that annual consumer price inflation rose by 2.7% in March on a year-on-year basis. I am Wandila Mara for SFM News Headlines at 3:30.
And coming up in your sports this hour, Majida leave for AFCON without key players. Beng expects special performances at the national champs, and Kodak coach hails Lions poachers. More details at 3:30.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, leading the conversation.
It's the catch of the season as our 3 madcap fishing fanatics are back, embarking on even a more exciting adventures across the globe. Get ready for bigger fish, bigger laughs, and more extreme destinations in a series packed with adrenaline-fueled fishing antics and plenty of friendly rivalry. Fishing Impossible Season 2, Fridays at 10 p.m, only on S3. Open up.
The Red Devils want to add more heat in Cairo to make life difficult for Masandawana, but Kabuyelo refuse to shake and break. They are on a mission to elevate their game and march to the final with big smiles. It is do or die. This is the second leg semi-final encounter of the Total Energies CAF Champions League. Catch the incredible action of African football. Al Ahly FC versus Mamelodi Sundowns FC. This Friday, 25 April at 5:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, S3, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, and SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Well, I'm back. It's been crazy. It's been a case of, 4 or 5 days? Thursday was the last time I was here. But I'm back on air, and it feels like I'm this new kid on the block. So I've been telling Patrick about all that. It's like we're just starting all over again, isn't it? But that was the long weekend, and I was involved in some other things. MC'd an event last night, which is just very, very interesting. Maybe I'll tell you about that later on. My name is Ashraf Garda. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the National Pulse. So what is it that moves the National Pulse? It's interesting. Even last night at this function, the amount of people who come up, and it's like, the pulse. So what is it? And every day, different things impact on the pulse, isn't it? Right now, I know there's an earthquake in somewhere in Turkey, in fact. And that's one thing. There's been a important issue on the road to the 2026 municipal election, which we'll touch on later on. The ongoing story, activism, certainly in the United Kingdom, around violence, gender-based violence in South Africa. That's something we're going to talk about. And the issue of the attempted assassination of Paul Mashatile, the yes, no, what if, maybe, that's been going on for a good few days. So you, of course, I know, will have an opinion. Let's hear it. I won't take your calls now, but I'll certainly take your WhatsApps right away. 0614 104 107. In fact, let me test you on this one. You've heard about the news about the attempted assassination of Paul Mashatile. So the stories appear conflicting, but what do you know about it? But this is the important thing I want to ask you, right? What's your one word that you would use to describe your understanding of what's playing out? Just let me know. WhatsApp 0614 104 107. And then to call in, you can do so later on 086 000 2032. And as always, you know, we are active on social media. You can tag us, SFM Radio on the X platform. And the same with myself, Ashraf Garda. Use that hashtag the National Pulse when you do just that with your own comments, right? So let's get to the issue of the Paul Mashatile story, right? Now, activists and citizens, the Citizen Forum, the Activists and Citizens Forum, well, they've released a statement reacting to the attempted assassination of the Deputy President Paul Mashatile. Now, according to the forum, and this is the gist of it, the story of an attempted assassination on the Deputy President sounds like a cooked-up story from within the ANC factions. Why would they think that? Let's find out. Dennis Bloom is the spokesperson for Activists and Citizens Forum. Dennis, appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting here on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and the listeners.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for inviting us.
Right. So I'll tell you what to do. Before we get talking to you, let's just reflect on what the Deputy President Paul Mashatile effectively said, narrating his experience about this attempted assassination.
Police are investigating. What really happened is that as I was driving from the NEC, my car was hit what initially I thought it was stones. And when we got home, the protectors said, no, the impact is too much. They want to take it for checking because, you know, a bulletproof windscreen is quite strong to be damaged. And that's why they are doing the investigation.
Okay, so that's what he said. Now, Dennis, if I'm going to pick up from what your organization says, that you believe it's a cooked-up story from within the ANC factions. Why would you think that?
No, Ashraf, there's a lot of questions that must be answered. In the first place, Ashraf, there is no such a thing that a ballistic test is going to take place or have taken place. In the first place, is the bullet cartridges that these people are saying when they arrived home, then they saw it was a shooting of a firearm. And all the time they were thinking it's stones. You see, Ashraf, if this story will go further, the police themselves will be complicit in this whole thing. Because, Ashraf, when the president or deputy president is going onto the road, there's always an advance team that will go 1 or 2 kilometers in front to clear the way. Now, we don't understand how this, and that advance team is to secure that the president or deputy president must not be interrupted in that. If that advance team sends something sinister on the road, they will alert the main convoy.
Okay.
But in this instance, it have never happened.
Okay, when the deputy president first spoke about potential, possible rocks, then in terms of some tests coming from the police side, they said no, they can confirm there were shots at the target. So I mean, that refutes the earlier claim, isn't it? So do you still think it's just a cocked-up story?
It's a cocked-up story. I am telling you, Asha, when the investigation by an independent body will do this investigation, then you will hear the truth of this story. Because yesterday, the whole media was asking the police for information to confirm or what. They confirmed 8:30 in the evening because they were under pressure.
Okay, but if it's this fabricated, cooked up story, what would be the motivation for that? I mean, why would that means what you're saying is it's a lie, Because that's really what it means. It's a lie. It didn't actually happen. Somebody is saying it happened, starting with the deputy president. For what motivation would that be the case?
No, the infight in the ANC for positions is very, very costly, Ashraf. I can tell you that's why we are saying it's a factional thing that have created and caused this hell of a hullabaloo that is going on. The deputy president and his team and his faction wants the sympathy vote from within the ANC.
So by suggesting that you may be killed, you get the sympathy vote and people support you as opposed to some other faction. I'm just finding it hard to believe. That's my point.
Sorry, what are you saying?
I was saying, you're saying they want the sympathy vote, so by fabricating that you were almost killed, more people will like you and be sympathetic to you compared to any other faction within the ANC. Now, I mean, that's what you're saying. I'm finding it hard to believe.
You see, Ashraf, my point, our point is this, that if it was the truth, there could have been a hell of a turning of upside down. The country could have been upside down, turned upside down by the security forces, by the ANC itself. The ANC could have made big noise, but up until now they are quiet.
Okay.
That's why we are saying this is a cooked up story.
Okay. Now here's a thought. I mean, that's your view. Now, the ANC's Northern Cape leader is Zamani Saul, and he dismissed the faction issue that you refer to regarding the cooked up story of the shooting. He spoke at the 10th ANC Northern Cape conference yesterday, and I thought what he had to say there is rather telling.
Now there's an issue that the car of the deputy president was shot at. Every South African is jumping to a conclusion. It's 2027, comrades. 2020. And we come to accept it as well. That is 2027. Because of the levels of divisions within our ranks. Who can, in his right mind, go out and want to kill a deputy president of the ANC for a 40% party? 40% party. Deputy president were not killed when we were having 70% here. And we come to believe those things, that it's because of this. Because of the levels of division within our ranks.
I mean, essentially what he's saying, if I understand that correctly, Dennis Bloem, that the current position of the ANC deputy president within the ANC is less significant now because the ANC's position within the leadership of South Africa is also less significant. So it's not such a big deal to try and knock off a deputy president. In many ways, you may support that position to say it can't be true.
Ashraf, you see what Zamani Saul is talking about. It's exactly what we are saying, that the factional battles within the ANC. How he is questioning this. That is why we are saying this is a stage thing. But you see, Ashraf, we must go first. You remember during the build-up and campaigns of in America, Trump and Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
Trump also had the very same thing of two attempted assassinations on him. And up to today, nobody is arrested for that, or nobody is standing trial for that. There is Trump. Trump is the president of the...
But with Trump, there were actual shootings. I mean, we saw the evidence, isn't it?
Sorry?
With Trump, there were actual shootings. We saw the evidence.
Well, I've not seen it. I have not seen it, that. I am saying, Ashraf, nobody stand trial for that. Yes, in this Mashatile issue, can be the very same thing that happened there to Trump happening here to Mashati.
All right, here's the last thing. I mean, the ANC Secretary General, Fikile Mbalula, also commented, because many people have said things about this, the alleged shooting incident, and this is what he said.
A report from him. We have not gotten a report from the Deputy President on the matter because a whole lot of things get to be reported in the tabloid media, especially like it was reported on Sunday World and all of that there was this. We must be wary of the work of agent provocateurs to seek to define certain situations and then report them as truths and so on. We are very much concerned about the reports, and we're looking forward to getting a comprehensive report from the from the Office of the Deputy President.
Okay, let's just end by this. Dennis, what do you think is going to happen very quickly?
What we are looking for is the truth. The police must give this investigation to an independent body that can investigate this thing thoroughly. There's a lot of independent, ethical, independent bodies that will come up with the truth. You see, the Secretary General of the party don't know anything about this. This is very strange. It has never happened that a deployee of your organization's life is in danger, were threatened, and then you, as the party, don't know anything about it.
Okay.
Very, very strange.
All right.
And very questionable.
Let's see what comes out of it. Dennis Bloom, appreciate your time. Spokesperson for Activists and Citizens Forum. Effectively, they're saying this whole thing is just a nonsense story. I mean, that's what it is. What do you make of it? And what do you make of the different political persuasions within the ANC and who's saying what? Who's saying what? Who's not saying what? Do you get a sense that some of them are not taking this thing seriously at all and that's wrong? Or do you think they're doing exactly what they should be doing, but the information is rather sketchy? I'd like to know. This is the National Pulse.
Have you recently migrated to the new TV licenses payment website? Make sure your account stays active by registering again or resetting your password. Don't miss out on all the fantastic new features our brand new website offers. Get registered today and stay connected with us. With the new website, get your payments done quickly and hassle-free with a wide range of services. So make sure you register to take advantage of all the great client features. Visit www.tvlic.co.za today. TV licenses. Do it for the things that matter.
Honey, what are you doing?
I'm stretching for tonight.
I thought you're not dancing at bachelorette parties anymore.
Baby, we need the money to put Johnny through matric, mos.
And what's the police uniform for?
The clients feel safer when I wear it.
No, man, just sell your bakkie to We Buy Cars. They give the best prices and they pay you within minutes.
Okay, but can I just go and dance one more time, please? You know how much I love it.
No, the buyer's already on his way here.
Wow, okay.
Strapped for cash? Just sell your vehicle to We Buy Cars. The easiest way to sell your car by far.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, let's go global now, but in going global, we still focus very much on the globe and South Africa. There's a plan for this coming weekend. It's not just April 27th and Freedom Day, the day before, which I think is significant, Operation Watershed. This grouping have come together to protest in London at Trafalgar Square against gender-based violence. Now, Trafalgar Square historically has been a big battleground, really, for protests against apartheid South Africa. So you are protesting against gender-based violence, but in South Africa, not in the UK. What's the story behind this? Let's find out with Elias Mchweni, who's the Operation Watershed's event organizer. Elias, appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting on the National Pulse.
Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm very good indeed. Give me the story. Why is there a need for the people of the UK, South African citizens, I take it, to highlight gender-based violence from within the Trafalgar Square or London region?
Yeah, because we still have the love and the concern of South Africa, and we still have children in South Africa. So, and I also work with young children in South Africa through sports.
Yeah, I hear that, but
So-
what I'm getting at is, first of all, what is your understanding of the level of gender-based violence specifically in our country, and what are you hoping to achieve out of the protests?
We're aiming to achieve that there would be awareness in terms of what is happening in terms of injustice in South Africa, especially against women and children, and we're aiming to also make people aware that the discrimination against other human sex is not acceptable.
Okay, but in doing that, I mean, that's not unusual, meaning there are protests in South Africa just about every few days, some form or the other against gender-based violence. Why would yours be different?
We're engaging with different political parties. Also, we are trying to force the South African embassy also to listen and take our voice to the cabinet, and we're working with other parties in the political party, NGOs, as well, and then as well as in the community, that we so that we can maybe make our voice heard. So it is a challenge to be heard, but.
Let me put this to you, and it's a rather bizarre scenario. I mean, the fact that there's gender-based violence in South Africa, I think, is not even being debated. It's an absolute fact, and it's horrific, and it's something that has stayed with us for a good few years in democratic South Africa, and it's completely unacceptable, right? On the other hand, the issue of gender-based violence is outside of the political space. Is there a danger that your watershed protest may be picked up in the same way that Donald Trump picked up the protests after AfriForum protests about what's happening in South Africa? And I know this is across the color and racial line, but it's not a political issue. It is a issue of society's inability to deal with crime in this country.
We've made it purposely so that we, as organizers, we are. It's white and black, and then we continuously enforcing that we're not taking, looking at the color, we're looking at the individual, because in terms of individuals themselves, every individual is a sinner, so we cannot say the sinner is only a specific color. Every person is a. If he's committed crime, is a wrong person. But then also you find that the reason that this gender-based violence is also continuing is that there is a compromise, and there's a corruption. There's a lack of funding, and in terms of channeling the resources into the subs, and as well as you know, that we come a long way from the apartheid system, which the system was actually protecting only minority. But then what has happened now that we came to democratic, and then so what the corruption and the elite has. They've made a system to only work for the elite, not for the poor.
Okay, in terms of your protests, there are many groupings in South Africa outside the political space that lobby around, the importance of obliterating gender-based violence in our country. Are you working with them at all? And either way, what are they saying about this?
we're working with a couple of political parties that also they find it much more challenging in terms of making their voice heard, and then in terms of finance, and then we're working with one of the minister of the social justice, and as well as finding it some there's not much of people that from the community in the point of view that are taking part. Making their voice heard.
Let me ask you this: the last thing here, right? In terms of your protests, I'm still particularly concerned whether it may be misconstrued by foreign capitals as a political protest, as opposed to something that is endemic throughout the country across race and political divides, right? But just park that aside. As part of your protest, do you then provide solutions as to how we can rid this country of the scourge of gender-based violence?
The solutions that we're providing is trying to be on the ground, and also to my philosophy is that as a community, sometimes we look at the top only, but then we forgetting on the ground. So as the people in the UK, and then we still experience that knife crime, for instance, here. But then you find that also there's sexual harassment. So, but the sexual harassment, how it works, it's only targeting mostly the female.
Okay.
So in South Africa, where I was working with the children, and then I find that the teachers, they still using the language that comparison. You cannot do such thing as a girl. So
all right, let me just end, because we need to get to news now. Are there, besides lobby groups and activists, right? Are you working with any actual political parties with regard to this protest? South African political parties?
Yes, we are working with one of the small political party. I can't just mention the name.
Why can't you mention the name? But why would you not be able to mention the name of a political party that is a registered party in South Africa? Why would they be ashamed of protesting against a very good cause?
It's not a shame. It's just mainly Indian party, an Indian leader party, but I just forgotten the actual name.
But how would you forget the name? Okay, let's leave it at that. I mean, I think if you remember the name, please just WhatsApp us and we can announce it on air. All right? Thank you so much. Lots to consider from that conversation around the protests around gender-based violence in South Africa taking place this weekend at Trafalgar Square, the day before Freedom Day celebrations in this country. Let's get the news headlines. Here's Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, the Special Investigating Unit's Chief National Investigations Officer, Zodwa Nqasibe, says they have offered evidence in support of the 29 criminal referrals related to the SABC that the SIU has submitted to the NPA for prosecution. Stats SA data shows that annual consumer price inflation rose by 2.7% in March on a year-on-year basis, down from 3.2% in February. And the U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance says explicit proposals have been issued to both Russia and Ukraine as Washington pushes for an end to the war. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N3 northbound in Bedfordview has a crash at Gillies Interchange. In central Johannesburg, the M1 southbound slow moving towards Crown Interchange, and Heidelberg Road has delays on the M2 West. In KZN, the N3 eastbound in Ashburton, a stationary truck at Linfield Park. On the N3 westbound, a vehicle fire incident reported near Mooi River Toll Plaza, so expect delays. In Cape Town, the M7 Jakes Harwell Drive southbound in Mitchells Plain has a police incident reported before Govan Becky Road, so expect delays. The N1 outbound slow moving towards the Okavango Road exit, and an update from Metro Rail regarding the Southern Line. Trains between Fish Hoek and Simonstown are temporarily suspended due to a broken rail at Glencairn. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Top Sport with Michael Abramson.
Ilkay Gundogan scored the fastest ever FA Cup final goal. How many FA Cup final goals have been scored within the first 30 seconds of kickoff?
Brian Makuye calling from Amakuye. There are 3 with the reset one of Gundogan.
The number of goals that were scored in the FA Cup are 4 goals.
Brian, you were spot on. There are actually 3, and Gundogan's was the 3rd. Gundogan, Saha, and Bob Chat are the 3 players who've scored within the first 30 seconds of an FA Cup final. The fastest goal was Gundogan's, officially timed at 13 seconds.
Top Sport on SAFM. This is SAFM Sports with Tumi Nkhabele.
To me, I've been away for 5 days. So in that period, I may have missed a lot. So what are we going to talk about now?
Welcome back, Ashraf. Let's start things off with football this hour. The SA Under-20 men's national team will travel tonight without some key players who have not been released by their clubs. The players include Siyabonga Mabena, who is injured, and Mbegezeli Mbogazi, who is not released by his club. Drawn in Group A, South Africa will face host Egypt, Zambia, Sierra Leone, and Tanzania. And Amajita kick off their campaign against Egypt at the Cairo International Stadium on Sunday. Elsewhere, Al Ahly will be looking to use their home ground advantage in the CAF Champions League semi-finals when they lock horns with Mamelodi Sundowns at the Cairo International Stadium for the second leg on Friday evening at 6 p.m. The two sides met for the first leg at the Loftus Versfeld Stadium in Pretoria last weekend and played to a goalless draw. In cricket, Proteas woman batter Lara Goodall has downplayed the pressure towards her after receiving a late call-up to the team currently touring Sri Lanka. Goodall was not in the original 15-player contingent to play the Islanders and India in an ODI tri-series starting on the 29th of April, but was added to the list last week Thursday following an illness to Anneke Bosch.
Look, I wouldn't say it's an opportunity to prove myself. I think a lot of the coaches see the potential in me to be really good for South Africa in the ODI format. So I think all I want to do is my main focus is just doing well for the country so that I can then make the World Cup at the end of, later this year. I think that's my main focus, and then everything will take care of itself. So it's not about putting pressure on myself to prove a point or any of those things. I think it's just about going out there and enjoying my cricket, and just throwing my name in the hat for the World Cup later this year. So that's my only focus, and it has been my focus ever since all of this happened. Well, it's always been my focus.
In athletics, an opportunity for new champions is up for grabs at the Athletics South Africa Senior Track and Field Championships starting tomorrow at the Buck MacArthur Stadium in Potchefstroom. Several top athletes, including 100-meter champion Akani Simbini, 110-meter hurdles champion Marijn Fourie, javelin champion Joanne van Dijk, and 400-meter champion Lat Pillay, amongst others, will be absent as they compete in the Diamond League meeting in China this Saturday. Athletics South Africa's Athletes Commission Chairperson Hendrik Mkhanyedi has confirmed their absence, noting that it opens the door for emerging talents to mark their mark in their national stage.
Yeah, that event is up for grabs, and also to tell the nation and the people who love athletics that a special exemption was given to few athletes that who presented their case to us, and then based on the merit of the case, we have approved their exemptions that they won't be competing at the championships. 100 meters men, it's up for grabs. Akani is not available. Marijn Fourie, 100 high heels for women, it's also out for grabs. And the javelin women, Van Dijk, she won't be there. So silver medal of the Olympics. So Line PK won't be there. Ryan Pasele, based on what was approved. So there's too much at stake for all these events that the previous championships are not available, but it creates an opportunity for new champions, from the new champions that will break in terms of winning the champions outside the champions.
Finally, in rugby, Stormers coach John Dobson says that he expects a better showing from his side when they face Benetton at Cape Town Stadium in the Vodacom United Rugby Championship. Despite a thrilling 34-29 bonus point win over Connacht, Dobson wasn't entirely satisfied with the performance, and he says that Benetton are not an easy side.
Benetton, I made a comparison with them when we had the coaches meeting this morning. But they beat La Rochelle at home. They're a bit like La Rochelle, a big team, but with that sort of physicality. But with Mancello and Brex, it's very much like what that La Rochelle team looks like. So it's a more physical challenge, perhaps than the multi sort of metronomic systems and attack and ball in hand play of Connacht. Yeah, we've got to speed up our own breakdown ball. I thought that was poor. Our set piece was excellent. Can't fault that for 1 sec. But I don't think we have to look much beyond discipline, faster ball. Well, we said the four things: discipline. In this case, discipline, faster ball, exits. Yeah.
Right, I'll have more on other sports in the next hour. However, Ashraf, you said you missed out on a lot of sports.
Well, I did miss out. What's the biggest story that I missed?
I'm sure you haven't missed the fact that Leeds and Burnley are now in the Premier League, and the latest one is the great news that now Lucas Radebe is the ambassador.
Okay, but that one is forget the other sponsor. That's significant. So what? He's the first global ambassador for Leeds United.
Yeah, which is absolutely great.
I mean, as someone who celebrates champions every day of my life, I mean, that's champion spotting, which shows you that, they called him the governor, right? I think it is, right, in Leeds. The chief, right? And that's the impact that he's made. I mean, he's got a suite named after him, right? I don't think South Africa's given that level of impact to him.
Yeah, I think
and level of maybe respect's the wrong word, but acknowledgement of his global impact that he's made. They were the semi-finalists in the Champions League when he was the captain.
Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely. And I mean, with the announcement of him being the ambassador, I was like, this is just a formality, because I feel like he's been the ambassador of Leeds for years.
No, but you see, it's not a formality insofar as that he loves Leeds, and that I think we get. But the fact that he's the first global ambassador, even if he does nothing, it's a recognition more than anything else of his role and impact that he's made on Leeds United Football Club. And that's something. Oh, Roo, there we are. The chief.
What is your money doing right now? Is it lazing around in that other account because you're not sure where to move it for premium growth? Well, let's make it work hard in a Standard Bank Money Market Select investment account, where we'll grow it with a nominal interest of up to 7.9% on a minimum deposit of 100,000 Rand. Plus, you get access to your funds anytime. Open yours online or on our app today. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Rise and Shine are not willing to drop their heads as they chase victory to maintain a good top half position. But Matsatsansa Pitori are in a deep hunt for 3 points to escape from danger. Catch the exciting battle of Mzansi's football, Polokwane City FC versus Supersport United FC on Saturday, 26 April at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Then at 3 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
The Spanish Princess series continues the story of Queen Catherine and Henry VIII. Catherine's struggle to produce an heir places her marriage and position in the court at risk, and she's haunted by her choices from the past. Despite proving herself a politician, a diplomat, and a national inspiration, and even a military commander, Catherine must battle to save her love with the king and to preserve the peace and prosperity of their reign. The Spanish Princess Season 2 airs Saturdays at 9:30 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
April is Freedom Month, a month to reflect, celebrate, and move forward. SAFM is bringing you powerful stories, insightful debates, and voices that shape our nation. Stay tuned to SAFM, where freedom, history, and the future meet. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. X at SAFM Radio, and at Ashraf Garda.
Okay, let's get your thoughts. Let's get your calls. I'll take that very, very shortly. And you know the story. You can call in wherever you may be, including if you are listening from the UK on live streaming. Great. And maybe you're going to that protest at Trafalgar Square at the weekend. So what do you make of it? 086. You got that? 086 000 2032 to call in. And then to WhatsApp, text or voice note 0614 104 107. What do you make of that issue? And the guest that I had finally said that they have a political party supporting them. And this is what he said. It's a very small party and it's run by an Indian gentleman and he's forgotten the name of the party. I'm just rather puzzled. Let's get on to something that we do need to be concerned about, absolutely, which is the upcoming municipal elections. Well, 2026, right? So there's preparation, naturally so. Today, the Electoral Commission briefed the media on the developments within the commission as well as other preparations for the upcoming municipal elections. And they've got some big ideas, I would think, to try and get young people to actually vote. Maseko Shiburi with me, the Electoral Commission's Deputy CEO. Maseko, as always, good to connect with you on the National Pulse.
That's rough.
Yeah, hello, you there, right?
Can you hear me, Ashraf?
I certainly can. Yeah, good to connect with you, right? I would suppose that of all the things that we talk about, understanding, and I'm saying this intentionally, understanding the pulse of what the youth are thinking about another election and whether they should bother voting must be one of the most important issues that the Electoral Commission should be spending their time on.
Indeed, Ashraf, and it is an issue that should worry all of us. If you consider that young persons make up a third of the population of the country, however, they represent only about 7.9 million persons on the voters' roll. The purpose of a person being on the voters' roll is that you can vote and therefore influence what happens in your community, in your country, and in public affairs generally. But there's also a thing that we don't talk to enough. That is, young persons can stand as candidates and therefore effect the change, become agents of the change that they want to see. So if there's no other reason for you to be on the voters' roll, you can be on the voters' roll because you could be the person that ignites the change that you want to see.
So what is your understanding of, for example, in the last local and national elections, what's the percentage of young people that are actually registered and then actually do vote? And how does that compare to trends in other parts of the world, maybe similar countries like South Africa?
The category of youth, which is liberally used as between 18 years and 34 years, we have an underrepresentation. So the representation of that category of voters on the voters' roll is out of sync with their size on the population register. But all is not lost, because what we've seen in 2 election cycles is that once registered, young voters are more likely to vote than any age cohort. So the message should be to young persons, enroll on the voters' roll, so that if you decide that there is a party or candidate who resonates with your expectations, then you will be able to vote for them. Or register on the voters' roll so that you can stand yourself as a candidate. So on our part, we do not believe that there's apathy on the part of young persons, but our research tells us that young persons are worried about certain developments in our country, but also they do not trust key political institutions, which are local government, the political parties, and to some extent, even the Electoral Commission.
Well, I mean, isn't that perhaps the most important issue? It's not, I mean, the one part is the young people look at the choices of political parties and how they express change, and they're disgruntled about their inability to effect change. And then the more important one that you're talking about is then by extension, they don't see a democratic election as a suitable vehicle for change. I mean, that is particularly troublesome and worrisome, isn't it?
That is worrisome. And in fact, the trend is not only here, it is also discernible elsewhere across the globe. And for democracy to have meaning, it must yield dividends. Unfortunately for us, we are only responsible for the procedural aspects of democracy, i.e. to register voters, to make opportunities for people to vote, to count those votes, and translate those votes. I think if there are improved outputs from governance, we may in fact see more engagement by all sectors of society that up to now have become disengaged from what happens in the body politic in the country.
Does it not suggest that the whole world is changing? We see what's happened in, let's call it democratically elected USA. We have a new president in that country, and he's elected democratically and then effectively coming up to 100 days mark in the next couple of days. The amount of changes that takes place, it's puzzling. So does that not reflect there's a complete move away from how young people see democracy as the vehicle for not just change but actual justice, and that's a problem?
Indeed, it is a problem, and until we understand it, and until that all of us, election management bodies, political parties, independents and scholars, understand the voices of young persons and respond to them adequately and meaningfully, the chasm that we see now can only...
Yeah.
On our part, we are starting that with focus on youth in tertiary institution, mostly as a listening exercise.
Okay.
To understand the lived experiences of young persons, what it is that militates against their
what I would suggest tertiary education
from an election.
Yeah. I would suggest tertiary as well as, getting into social media with young people big time. But just quickly before I let you go, do you have a potential date or month for the election next year?
The responsibility to set a date and call the election rests with the Minister of COGTA, but constitutionally the window period for an election is the 2nd of November and no later than the end of Jan 2027. The 2nd of...
I think we've just lost the connection.
That is the window period.
Okay, so just to confirm, 2nd of November 2026 would be the earliest time of the election. Is that what you're saying? Have I got that right?
That will be the earliest. That will be the earliest date, and the latest date in terms of the law and constitution will be the 30th of January. So that's the window period.
Okay, got that. Appreciate. Yeah, thank you for your time. There we are. Lots to consider there between now and then with Masego Shiburi. Will you vote? Won't you? Especially if you're a young person. Like seriously, do you see an election as the vehicle for change and upholding justice and social justice in your country?
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
At Duba Tradeport, we specialize in helping businesses grow through state-of-the-art manufacturing, infrastructure, logistics services, and international trade links. We're an advanced environment for doing business where most ambitious companies gather. If you're seeking progressive opportunities and looking to build mutually beneficial relationships, move to dubatradeport.co.za to see your business grow beyond potential.
Your Sunday nights are about to get big on S3. We have some of the biggest movie titles that will take you on adventures that you simply cannot miss. Thomas arrives in a glade at the center of a giant maze. The race to escape the maze leads him to a journey. Should they escape, all questions will be answered. Tune into The Maze Runner, Sunday, the 27th of April. Maze Runner Darth Cure on the 4th of May. Maze Runner The Scorch Trials on the 11th of May. S3 Blockbuster Movies, Sundays at 7 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3.
El Clasico is here. Barcelona takes on Real Madrid in the Copa del Rey final. And you can catch every moment on S3 or stream live on SABC+. Watch two of the world's biggest teams fight for Spanish football's ultimate trophy. Don't miss out on the heart-pounding action.
Head to sabcplus.com to register right now or tune into S3 on Saturday 26 April at 9:30 p.m. for the live broadcast. This is the Copa del Rey final. Barcelona versus Real Madrid, proudly brought to you by SABC Sport, your home of great football. For the love of the game.
From the shows that bring us laughter to the moments that inspire us, your SABC TV license makes it all possible. Every license paid supports local stories, top talent, and the programs that unite South Africa. Pay your TV license today. Visit tvlic.co.za or your nearest retail outlet. Hashtag your screen, your story. Together, we make it happen.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Okay, let me hear from you. I want to get a sense of what your pulse tells you and all of us right now. Mike in Gqeberha, hi.
Afternoon, Ashraf.
Yeah, good talking to you.
Yes, nice talking to you too. I don't think one should be surprised by some of the things that do happen here. I mean, I'm sure you remember Cheeky Watson.
Yes.
When he had this accident and there was not even a drop of blood, but we had some Kelu there telling us accident has just happened. You might also.
But is that Cheeky Watson or is that his brother? I think it's his brother.
His brother, I think
that's it.
Okay.
Cheeky was the rugby player, but I mean they're all related. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry for that.
Yeah.
And then you also remember Marcus Josta committed suicide and etc. etc. What I'm driving at is that the issue with the deputy president, I think one incident is possible, and that is that he might have been driving by himself without his protection, and something happened. Because there is no way that he was driving with his protection and all those vehicles and somebody was able to shoot and nothing happened. I mean, there was no chaos. Yes, I think that is not possible either. Because remember, these politicians, sometimes they want to go somewhere by themselves. They don't want their protection to know where they're going. Maybe they're going to see.
But can you just imagine that? There's something wrong with that, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, but they do that. It's nothing new. Politicians do that. They want to go meet somebody. They don't want the drivers, the protection services to know. They do it all the time.
Okay. So what do you conclude from all of this? I mean, your last thought on this. What do you conclude?
In terms of being a faction of the ANC, that's debatable. That's it could be that. It could not also be that. But I'm just talking about the possibility that that's what could have happened. That he was driving by himself, I think.
Okay, got that. Mike in Gqeberha. Remember when the president said he sort of drove in Joburg on his own? Like, I must say, I did find it incredibly bizarre. I mean, many of us don't want to do it on our own anyway, but he's the president of the country. Think of the responsibility of safety for the president.
Afternoon, Ashraf. Our deputy president's story does not add up. It doesn't make sense at all. He even said that he was driving. How possible is that? Yes, I know that we must take his word for it, but I'm not convinced. Or maybe he's trying to emulate Donald Trump. Who knows? Thank you very much, Peter Maila Machaba from Letswatla.
You know, all of you, when you call in, you're actually political commentators. You do that. And you also represent your community, because you mentioned the names, like as Peter has just done. Here's another.
Ashraf, Paul Mashatile must go try that story to a group of grade R learners. I mean, even he sounds so unsure about it. I mean, really, with adults for this sort of stuff, it's a load of hogwash, as late Buteles would have said. Thanks, Ashraf.
Why are you picking on grade R's, man? Like, what have they done? I'm just thinking about that too, yeah. All right, there's more on that same issue.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. There was an interview that I've seen on social media. When Gwen Ramkhopa was asked, Dr. Gwen Ramkhopa in particular, was asked about the NC's view on the attempted assassination. She then said that it's possible that it could be faked. And for somebody who's actually sitting far, listening, then that would come across as a confirmation that this was actually indeed staged. If you ask me, Ashra, the divisions in the ANC are deeply entrenched. You speaking to Neo Setlhako Gauta from Bloemfontein.
Okay, thanks for that, Neo. It's staged, deeply entrenched. Oh my goodness. So if that's staged, what else? What's the other big stakes here?
We are doing great. So the story of Mashadile, this is a blue lie. They mustn't lie the people of South Africa. How can you interact with so many cars? Because those people, they are escorted by maybe plus minus 5 cars plus the scooters plus the motorbike. Now they say they were attempted to shoot him. No, this is a blue lie. It's a blue lie. They must stop lying the people of South Africa. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Well, there you are. So nobody believes it. Well, let me put this poll to you. Maybe we'll get... I'll get you to respond to this just via WhatsApp. Simple yes, no. Do you believe in the Paul Mashatile assassination attempt story? Yes, if you believe it. No, if you don't. And tell you what, you can vote on WhatsApp firstly. Just simple yes, no. 0614 104 107. Then you can explain after the yes, no why you say what you say. And maybe I'll get our team here to also post it on the X platform on Twitter and just tweet out a yes, no vote line. Let's think about that too. Right, 4 o'clock. Let's get the news.
Thank you, Ashraf. Top stories at 4. SIU gives update on its investigations into the SABC, and consumer inflation slows sharply in March. For SAFM News, I am Onda Lambana, and a very good afternoon. The Special Investigating Unit's Chief National Investigations Officer, Zodwa Qesibe, says they have offered evidence in support of the 29 criminal referrals related to the SABC that the SIU has submitted to the NPA for prosecution. She appeared before Parliament's Standing Committee on Public Accounts to give an update on the investigations by the SIU on various investigations at the public broadcaster. One case is currently on trial. In total, Qesibe says the value of the cases amount to over 250 million rand.
They involve private companies who contracted with SABC, its directors and former SABC directors. The combined value of the cases is around 267 million rand. The charges vary from theft, fraud, contravention of Companies Act and PFMA. These NPA referrals were done between 2018 and 2020.
Consumer inflation has slowed in line with market expectations. Stats SA data shows that annual consumer price inflation rose by 2.7% in March on a year-on-year basis. That's down from 3.2% in February. The main positive contributors to the annual inflation rate were housing and utilities, food and non-alcoholic beverages in restaurants, as well as accommodation services. Higher price changes were recorded for fruits and nuts, hot beverages and meat categories. Patrick Kelly is with Statistics South Africa.
The decline was mainly due to lower fuel prices and softer tuition inflation. Changes in the fuel price often affect the monthly inflation rate. In March, the fuel index softened by 0.4% from February, taking the annual rate from a negative 3.6% to a negative 8.8%. A litre of 95-octane petrol was 22 Rand and 34 cents in March, down from 24 Rand 45 cents a year before. The average price for diesel declined to 22 Rand and 80 from 24 Rand 85 over the same period.
The Electoral Commission says e-voting will not be used in the upcoming 2026 local government elections. IEC CEO Simon Mabulo briefed the media in Centurion in Gauteng today. Mamabulo says although e-voting will not play a role in the upcoming elections, it is still a subject worth engaging. He says the IEC will instead hold public engagements on the matter over the next months.
The 6 months period will conclude at the end of September and followed by a period of review of the public submissions and then drafting of the final policy for consideration in Parliament and through the Executive. It is important to know that the Commission has not yet made a decision on the use of e-voting, and certainly this is not contemplated for use in next year's municipal elections.
ANC Subcommittee Chairperson on International Relations, Nomvula Mokonyane, says Pope Francis was an important ally for the people of Palestine. The pontiff had been vocal about the current conflict happening in the Middle East, calling for a ceasefire in Gaza and the release of hostages on Easter Sunday. Mokonyane was speaking to the SABC at a memorial service in honor of Pope Francis at the Cathedral of Christ, the King Church in Johannesburg. Mokonyane says it is important to continue with his legacy.
We've lost an ally for the cause of the people of Palestine. Right in his deathbed, he would call the people of Palestine, the Christians in Palestine, he would call for peace. And we do believe that this is a cause that we must never actually stop pursuing in his honor, in his memory, and that his spirit must give us more courage, that we continue. We know that it comes with a price, but it is the price that we must sacrifice ourselves for.
The U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance says proposals have been issued to both Russia and Ukraine as Washington pushes for an end to the war. Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine more than 3 years ago. Earlier, a high-level meeting in London between the U.S. and Ukraine and some of its main European allies was downgraded. Reports indicate the U.S. might be considering recognizing occupied Crimea as Russia territory. Vance says it is time for both to agree, warning that if not, the U.S. will walk away from the process.
We've put together a very fair proposal. We're going to see if the Europeans, the Russians, and the Ukrainians are ultimately able to get this thing over the finish line. I feel pretty optimistic about it. I think everybody has been negotiating in good faith, but it's now time, I think, to take, if not the final step, one of the final steps.
Recapping the top story, the Special Investigating Unit's Chief International Investigations Officer, Zodwa Xesibe, says they have offered evidence in support of the 29 criminal referrals related to the SABC that the SIU has submitted to the NPA for prosecution. I am Ondalambana for SAFM News Headlines at 4:30.
In sports this hour, CAF renews partnership with Africa Global Logistics. Warriors fined 100,000 rands in transformation dispute, and Biles undecided on competing at LA 2028 Olympics. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 northbound in Midrand, slow moving towards Samrand Road. Modderfontein Road eastbound in Edenville has delays between Parkland Drive and Zierfontein Avenue, and the R554 in Lenasia has a crash reported between Nirvana Drive and the N12 highway. In KZN, the N3 eastbound in Ashburton has a stationary truck at Linfield Park, and on the N2 westbound, a vehicle fire incident reported near Mooi River Toll Plaza, so you're asked to expect delays. In Cape Town, the M3 southbound slow moving towards Rhodes Drive, the M5 southbound is slow moving towards Racecourse Road exit, and the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound slow moving towards Hospital Bend. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Meet Maria. Meet her family, the Ramirez. One wrong step and they will have you swimming with the fishes. Meet Amadeo, a trained lawyer and member of the rival business clan, the Mateus. The two fall in love, and Maria's dreams of a happily ever after change when Madeo is murdered at their wedding. Their daughter, Jo, despises her mother's humble beginnings and will do anything to steal all of Maria's fortune. This is the world of Sweet Diva. Airs weekdays at 4:30 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
The Seagulls believe their fighting spirit will match their style of football as they chase valuable points.
Pedro in front of the Leicester fans against Hermanson, and he rolls it home. Joao Pedro gives Albion the lead.
While the Hammers have a big task to prevail away from home.
Clips it in there, and Bowen! And
West Ham United have turned this game around.
This is the Premier League. Catch the nail-biting action. Brighton and Hove Albion versus West Ham United FC on Saturday 26 April at 3:30 p.m. live on S3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC+. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
April is Freedom Month, a time to reflect, remember and celebrate. At SAFM, we honor the journey of our nation and the resilience of its people. United in the defense of our freedom and democracy, we salute every voice that keeps the spirit of liberation alive. Stay tuned to SAFM, where the nation comes together. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
You know, yesterday, I wasn't here because I was, in fact, emceeing an event which featured, and this is just the point I want to bring up, a person by the name of the Sheikh Omar Suleiman. So he's interesting because his father's Palestinian born, his mother is Syrian born, and he's born in the USA. And he made the point that is so telling about how does he, who's effectively an American, be in a position now where many of the values of his own country, his American country, he's opposing because of how he sees the position that they've taken globally, specifically around the issues of Palestine and what many believe is their role, the U.S. role in supporting that cause against the cause in support of Israel against the Palestinians. And the broader issue that he made, about that, but also made the point that so many leaders in the world, and religious or otherwise, historically are shifted into positions of huge uncomfortability and huge pressure and strain because that, and I'm paraphrasing, that uncomfortability is necessary for them to grow their internal leadership, for them to then be external leaders for the people that they will one day lead. And it's an important point for all of us to remember. So because the under pressure leaders must grow a sense of empathy, and that will fold out or unfold in developing social justice. Just something I thought I'd share with you. Yeah, that's my point. Right, what about some of the other issues in South Africa and the IMF and what that means? Because I'll tell you what, the International Monetary Fund has slashed South Africa's growth expectations for 2025 by 0.5%. Let me get that right, 0.5 percentage points to 1.0%. The question is, why? What does this mean now? What does this mean for the future? Let's get the thoughts of Dawie Ruert, who is the Director and Chief Economist of the Efficient Group. Dawie, appreciate your time. You're live on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon to you. Thank you.
Right. What happens when a country's growth expectations are slashed? Interesting, you're part of the Efficient Group. Does that suggest that the country is going about its work inefficiently?
Well, I guess so, but it's not only us. It's for most of the world. The IMF actually reduced their expectations in terms of economic growth. For the world, they expect something like 2.8% economic growth now. That's also 0.5 or so lower. And for Sub-Saharan Africa, 3.8%. So that's also 0.5% lower. But for South Africa, they now expect only 1% economic growth. Now, why is this important? For a number of reasons. And as an economist, I do these sort of calculations all the time. But for the Minister of Finance, for example, it's very important to make an estimate on what he thinks is going to be economic growth, because he bases his budget on that. He will calculate if the economy grows by X%, for instance, that should give him so much money to spend on A, B, and C. And we know about what's going on in the budget at the moment. So economic growth expectations are very important. important because you make plans on that. You prepare your budget on that. And now the IMF, they reckon that the South African economy will grow by about 1% this year. Just keep in mind that the population is expanding at a rate above 1%, 1.2, 1.3% or so. So if the economy continues to grow at 1%, for instance, then on a per capita basis, we will again get poorer this year. Last year, economic growth was 0.6%. If you compare South Africa over the past 15 years, we are back where we were 15 years ago in terms of per capita GDP.
Okay.
But it goes more than that. Yeah.
Yeah, carry on.
Yeah, it goes more than that because the size of the economy, and remember, this is an estimate. We don't really know what the size of the economy really is. Economists always debate on what should be included in GDP. Should we include things like picking up wood as part of the production of the economy, for example? So this is an estimate. Unlike other numbers, like, for example, the rand-dollar exchange rate, that is an actual number. You can see what it's trading at. But most other numbers in the economy, like inflation and GDP growth, that sort of stuff, are all estimates. But the size of the economy is also important because we use the size of the economy to compare certain other variables. Like, for instance, and again the budget comes into play here, is that the fiscal deficit, how much the Minister of Finance borrows, is usually compared to the whole of the economy. And this year's fiscal deficit is probably going to be in the region of about 5% of GDP. Another one that's very crucially important is how much debt we have. Now, it's okay to have a lot of debt as long as your economy is big. But we've got a small economy, and that means that the ratio is moving in the wrong direction. And currently, our fiscal debt as a percentage of GDP is well in excess of about 75%, depending on how you're going to define this. So in the end, what really matters, and I would say that economic growth, this number, the GDP number, is perhaps the single most important number, because that's a number telling us what our income is going to be. That's a number that tells us whether we're going to employ more people in the economy, what's going to happen to poverty, how much tax the Minister of Finance is going to get out of the system, whether the politicians are going to fight about that or not. This number is certainly the most important number out there, and everybody is expecting it lower now.
Okay, so I think the most fundamental question then for all the listeners here connected to the National Pulse is, what does this actually then mean for them?
It means for them that the major players, the South African Reserve Bank, most private sector economists, the International Monetary Fund, expects another weak economic growth year for South Africa this year. And I don't, by the way, think we're going to get to 1%. I think it's going to be less than that. That also means for the people listening to us now that our income on a per capita basis, on average, will be lower at the end of this year compared to last year. It also means that many people listening to us now are probably going to be without jobs in a year's time because the economy is not growing.
Now, how do we fight back on that? You made the earlier point that the projection was like 1.5%, which is not high anyway, right? And you also made the point at the outset that there are global factors, including the issues of the tariff wars, that does impact not just our country but all countries. But ultimately, countries must solve their internal problems. So what it doesn't help us when we say, Azerbaijan may also be affected by this. Like, honestly, so what happens in Baku doesn't impact Johannesburg or Cape Town. How then do we fight back? What should we be doing?
I think this is more a political question than an economic question. As an economist, I can tell you what we should be doing. We must protect private property rights. We must encourage free trade. We must have low inflation. We must have a productive state. And an efficient state. We must have lower taxes. Those sort of things we need, and those sort of things should happen. But I'm afraid those sort of things are politically very difficult to do. And politicians have to make these sort of decisions. We know about the fiscal budget. Let me give you a very good example. We know about the budget and how they're struggling to get the budget through Parliament and all of that. But a major expense item in a budget is a huge increase in the salaries of the civil servants once again. And they've been getting above inflation increases for many, many years now, which is simply unsustainable. And the politicians, they gave the civil servants a 5.5% increase, but the normal grant recipients, they got 5% increase. And the reason for that is political, because COSATU is part of the tripartite alliance. So how do we fix this? We need to fix politics, because mostly the ANC government has caused immense damage to the South African economy because of the wrong macroeconomic policies. And I've just given one just now. There are many other examples.
Yeah. No, just the last thing, and maybe it's linked. Well, how is it linked? Inflation now still remains at 2.7. Well, is at 2.7.
Yes.
Which I understand would be the lowest for the last 5-6 years. How significant is that, and how does that play out in terms of some of the scenarios you've just mapped out?
Yeah. Okay. There are many important things in the economy. There are two major macroeconomic policy instruments that can be used by the authorities. The one is fiscal policy, what the Minister of Finance is doing. Now we ran out of dry ammunition there. There's not much he can do there. In fact, we have to cut back on fiscal spending. But the other macroeconomic policy that's also crucially important, and that's monetary policy, and that is what the Reserve Bank is responsible for. And thanks to Lesetja Kganyago, the governor of the South African Reserve Bank, he has been running a very tight ship, and it's very unpopular to increase interest rates and leave interest rates relatively high. But he has been doing that because he understands that inflation is a very, very bad thing. If it has not been for him and a relatively tight monetary policy or relatively high interest rates in South Africa, that 1% that we're probably not going to get this year would have been much, much lower. Imagine a scenario of 1% economic growth or 0% economic growth plus, say, 10% inflation. That's much, much worse than having 1% and 3% inflation. So fortunately for the Reserve Bank, in the way they've been managing monetary policy, inflation at least is not one of our major problems.
Okay, lots to chew on over that, and let's see how we can become more efficient as a country. Dawie Roodt, thanks for your time. Director, Chief Economist of the Efficient Group. Right, let's get your thoughts on what we just spoke about, the economy, IMF forecast downwards in terms of growth for South Africa. How significant is that? And every other issue, the Paul Mashatile issue, the issues of the protests against GBV in South Africa, but the protests being done in the United Kingdom over the weekend. And there are many other issues that I'm sure you want to raise, including the issue of VAT. Remember that too?
Dango, for the love of the game and Mzansi for sure. Soccer Zone has relocated to a new slot, 9 p.m. live every Monday on SABC 1. Mzansi Africa.
Fascinating goals.
The unbelievable saves.
From Africa Borwa to the entire African continent to the Bundesliga and the Premier League.
High-level reviews of crucial match scenarios by the legendary Mr. Rev.
Top-class analysis, latest news about the beautiful game.
And Momish of the Week.
SABC Sport Football Weekend ends on Mondays at 9 p.m. on Soccer Zone.
Live on SABC 1. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
This season, the truth cuts deeper than ever. Silent Witness is back for its gripping 20th season, and no secret is safe. Dr. Nikki Alexander and the Lal Center team dive into chilling murders, dark conspiracies, and personal trials that hit closer to home than ever before. Truth Speaks, if you know how to listen. Silent Witness, Season 20, Thursday and Fridays at 9 p.m. on S3. Don't just watch the mystery, feel it.
Road crashes cause injuries and death. Take your safety seriously and the safety of others. Fatigue is a silent killer. If you're on the long road, take a break every 2 hours or every 200 kilometers. Remember, buckle up and stay within the speed limit. Don't overtake on a barrier line. Travel during the day, it's safer. Road safety is everyone's responsibility. Ensure that you and your loved ones arrive alive. This message is brought to you by the National Department of Transport.
Stay ahead of the financial game. Join us tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. for an insightful journey through the day's market developments, financial updates, and investment news. Tune in for your daily dose of financial intelligence as we navigate the twists and turns of the financial landscape with expert insights on SAFM Market Update. Brought to you by CIPS, the Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply, shaping the future of procurement one smart decision at a time.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Okay, let's get on to another issue that concerns South Africa and another country, our neighbors, Lesotho. Remember Lesotho, the country that Donald Trump couldn't remember where it was? Well, President Ramaphosa is undertaking a working visit to Maseru in Lesotho to co-chair the second session of the Binational Commission between South Africa and Lesotho, with Samuel Nsakwane Matekane, the Prime Minister of Lesotho. So the two of them together. The South Africa-Lesotho Binational Commission follows the inaugural session, which was held in September of 2023. Now, the heads of state witnessed the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding between the ministers from Lesotho and as well as South Africa. And let's do this. I'm going to play a clip from Ronald Lamola, South Africa's Minister of International Relations, who said this at the closing.
Just for these 5 minutes, I will be President Ramaphosa. Your Excellency, Prime Minister Matekane, ministers, high commissioners, colleagues, on behalf of President Ramaphosa, Republic of South Africa, I now read his prepared. We have come to the end of the second session of the Binational Commission. The spirit of friendship, cooperation, and solidarity that underpins our very close relations has been given renewed impetus. You will agree with me, Your Excellency, that the future of our collaboration is bright, and the people of South Africa and Lesotho will continue to enjoy the fruits of our labor for generations to come. I wish to commend His Majesty King Letsie III for his judicious reign over this great kingdom. May his wisdom and guidance continue to advance the fortunes of this nation. As South Africa, we stand side by side with you as we seek to develop our countries further. In South Africa, you have a trusted, a reliable, and a committed partner. Our discussions today underscored the need to accelerate the implementation of decisions, projects, and programs arising out of the Binational Commission. Although we are making strides, more work still needs to be done to reach the desired outcomes. South Africa and Lesotho have the opportunity for closer collaboration in many areas. Apart from greater private sector collaboration, we should give attention to infrastructure development, energy, and food security, bilateral and regional value chains, and greater trade. While other countries are creating barriers, including imposing tariffs, it is incumbent on our two countries to promote trade relations that reflect our common interest. We will work closely with our partners and neighbors in SADC and throughout the continent for the Africa Continental Free Trade Area to succeed. The BNC will remain seized with matters pertaining to such issues as immigration, security, capacity building, and the well-being of our peoples. South Africa and Lesotho remain significant partners. Our common interests, historical links, and shared heritage forged through many years remains very strong. Our two countries will continue to play constructive roles in SADC, on the African continent, and globally in our collective desire for a peaceful and a prosperous world. Your Excellency, I once more again reiterate our sincere gratitude and appreciation for our pleasant stay in Maseru, for your hospitality, and for the friendship that continues to underpin bilateral relations between our two countries. I look forward to receiving you in South Africa for the third session of the Binational Commission. I thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, that is South Africa's Minister of International Relations, Ronald Lamola, regarding that bilateral, really, between South Africa and Lesotho. Okay, it does mean it's time for me to hear you, right? What's moving the national pulse for you? Let's pick out some of those, because we had so many comments early on about Paul Mashatile, and in fact it continues. But in fact there's more. I want to just pick it out. Right, there's more.
We are doing great. So the story of Mashadile, this is a blue lie. They mustn't lie the people of South Africa. How can you interact with so many cars? Because those people, they are escorted by maybe plus minus 5 cars plus the scooters plus the motorbike. Now they say they were attempted to shoot him. No, this is a blue lie. It's a blue lie. They must stop lying the people of South Africa. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. In fact, I played that before, but not for emphasis, does that make sense or not?
Afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf, this thing of Mashatile is dramatized. You remember his people beat those motorists there on the highway. So you want to tell the public why they are so ruthless on the freeway, because they are not safe. He wants us to tolerate their nonsense when they beat people on the highways there. It's connected to that case of his bodyguards, Norman from Brixton.
But it's interesting how everybody has their own theories and they believe 100% they're right. I'm not saying Norman's right or wrong, but it's just amazing how many people believe that they've got the answer, whereas we struggle with the answer.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. This thing of the alleged attack on Paul Mashatile, our deputy president, of course, nothing should be swept under the carpet. There must be a proper investigation. However, these days there is very thin line between the reality and some of the things that are fabricated. But I think it should not be swept under the carpet. They need to actually do a proper investigation. Because he's the second citizen of the country. It's very important allegations that need to be investigated, and people need to know.
Well, I think you're right about that. That, you know what, forget what people are saying about who cooked up whatever. We're talking about the deputy president of the ANC, a most significant party in the country. I'm not saying the most significant, I'm saying a most significant. And we're also talking about the deputy president of South Africa. That alone is significant. It can't just be ignored. Do you get a sense that too many people are just sort of wishy-washing it away? What do you think needs to happen now? But I asked the question early on. Do you believe it actually happened? That there was an attempted assassination on the life of the deputy president of South Africa? Yes, if you believe so, give me an answer. No, if you don't, and give me a one-line answer on that. You can WhatsApp or text, voice note or text immediately. You can do that right away. Let's get the news headlines. Here's Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, the IEC says it will launch a civic democracy drive targeting young learners and students. Briefing the media in Centurion today, IEC Chief Electoral Officer Simon Mabulu highlighted initiatives the Commission will take on in preparation for the local government elections next year. The Special Investigating Unit's Chief National Investigations Officer, Zodwa Klesibe, says they have offered evidence in support of the 29 criminal referrals related to the SABC that the SIU has submitted to the NPA for prosecution. And the Ukrainian officials say a Russian drone attack on a bus has killed at least 9 people in the city of Marinets. Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. A full update follows at the top of the hour with Kulufelo Defo.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, Republic Road in Randburg has a crash reported at Bram Fisher Drive, and President Forshia Drive in Bosgrain is closed between CR Swart Drive and Kelly Avenue. In KZN, on the N3 eastbound in Ashburton, a stationary truck at Linfield Park and the N3 westbound has a vehicle fire incident reported near Mooi River Toll Plaza, so expect delays. In Cape Town, the N7 northbound is slow-moving at Malibongwe Drive off-ramp and Albert Road outbound in Woodstock, slow-moving towards Salt River Circle. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Right to me, you've got some continental news CAF news, right?
Yeah, the president of Confederation of African Football, Dr. Patrice Motsepe, has announced the renewal of the partnership between Africa Global Logistics and CAF. Motsepe says that the continuation of their partnership with AGL will allow the federation to continue their work on the continent. In the meantime, Amajita coach Raymond Mdaga is quite confident that the team is ready for the Under-20 Africa Cup of Nations as they head to Egypt tonight. Mdaga's squad minus some of the players who have either not been released by the club or will join the team later this week in Egypt, beat Sekhukhune United's ABC Motsepe League team 5-0 in Bedford View yesterday. Mdaga revealed that they would have loved to play against a team also playing at this AFCON, but says that they're still fine with their preparations.
Earlier on, we had prepared for that, and it's something that we would have loved to have. But, you know, as a coach, you must know you're always on your toes. And the technical team and the boys know that when things change, you really and immediately adjust. In the initial preparation, we were supposed to play Congo before they also changed because it also affected them to say the tournament now is no more in Ivory Coast, it's in Egypt, so we can't be able to play the match. We would have loved to have an extra match. Hence, even the match that we're playing, we wanted like a team that is, in the look of things, is in a better level compared to the boys, but because we wanted the physical challenges and the mental challenges that we'll find with the seniors, and it's something that we would have loved to, honestly. So, but we are fine with where we are so far.
Still staying with football, Arsenal play Crystal Palace tonight, knowing that a defeat will see Liverpool win the Premier League. Bukayo Saka is available for selection after he was forced off before the hour mark on Sunday with an Achilles issue. And Ashraf, what we know, Arne Slot did say that Liverpool are going to watch that Arsenal game very closely as a team together, and it's going to be special for them if they win today. However, do you see Arsenal losing today?
Well, it's very possible. I mean, you know, these actually they what did they do after that Real Madrid game? They drew or they lost?
Who?
Arsenal. After they beat
Drew or lost?
Yeah, after they played Real and they won. Right?
Yeah.
Then the league game they played on the weekend.
They won.
Okay, so maybe they lose this week. You never know. Not that I want Liverpool to win. It's been a bit of a flat champions race. You like it when the race for a league title is. I won't use the word down to the wire because that's so overused, but at least it gets very close. At the moment, it's a reflection on the other clubs as well as Liverpool, just how far apart they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, sad.
In Cricket South Africa have fined the Warriors 100,000 rands for failing to meet transformation requirements. The Warriors failed to field enough black African players in a match against the Dolphins in February, where all teams are required to field 3 black African players. The Warriors fielded only 2. The Warriors should have asked Cricket South Africa for permission to not adhere to the requirements. The Warriors also lost log points because of their breach. In weightlifting news, SA athlete Will Swart is aiming to impress at the senior weightlifting championships in Mauritius this week with some personal best in sight. The 27-year-old is working his way towards representing the country at the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, and qualifying for a continental competition this month has given him a boost.
I'm hoping so. So normally the week before competition you'll do what's called a taper or deload. So the amount of volume that you normally do will come down quite a lot, so that on competition day you're feeling rested and recovered and your body's ready to fire. Because I've got the big comp in 2 weeks, I didn't do that for this competition. So I was not feeling 100%, but still happy with my lifts. I got 2 out of my 3 snatches, and my clean and jerks only got my first one, which still good. I think it was the heaviest I've ever opened, so it was my heaviest first attempt. Then narrowly missed the second, and then missed the third one as well. So yeah, a lot of takeaways. I think could have been better, but I think when I've rested and recovered a bit, hopefully the weights that I missed today I'll be able to do nice and easily in Mauritius.
Meanwhile, Simone Biles says that she's unsure if she will compete at the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles. The American is the world's most decorated gymnast and has won 7 Olympic gold medals, with 3 of those coming at the 2024 Games in Paris. More details in the next bulletin in terms of sport.
And I just wonder where Liverpool supporters will be tonight. I heard there was going to be like a planned cavalcade of sorts, celebration through the city of Cape Town if they win the league by this weekend. Well, tonight. So let's say by the next day or so, like a whole street tour. Can you imagine that? Far away from the city of Liverpool, people in another world, another country, another continent, they have a love for another club, just like you and I have. It's rather bizarre how we do that. It happens in sport, perhaps in nothing else too.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
The wait is over. I've been hustling, grinding, and now it's time for the glow up you've been waiting for. Unapologetically, made the bay. From the grind to the glam. Anele Zondo The Glow Up on Saturdays at 8 p.m. only on SABC 1, Mzansi, for sure.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
So at a time when we talk about growth forecasts being revised downwards, which is a cause for concern, let's look at all the other numbers with Makwe Masilela, Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. Makwe, good to connect. Right, we've got local and global markets in a moment, but start with the results from Capitec.
Afternoon to you, Ashraf, and to your listeners. Capitec, we've seen transaction and commission income going up, the net asset value up 17%, the profits as headline earnings per share up 30%, and the total dividend up 34%. Ashraf, their net interest income was up 22.4%, hence the share price jumped almost 8%, and markets started the session on a positive note before the JSE gave him back all the gains, and that's after Trump said he has no plans to fire Fed chair despite his frustration over interest rates, further aiding sentiments. Trump said he will be very nice to China and that tariffs will drop substantially in the event of a deal, coupled with clarification from Elon Musk that he will be spending less time in Washington, D.C. The yield on the 10-year Treasury declined, and locally our March consumer inflation slowed to an almost 5-year low, decreasing for the first time in 5 months, edging lower to 2.7% from 3.2% in February. And we see currency traders or currency markets are signaling that there are still some undercurrent of skepticism about the U.S. ever-changing policy, with the dollar traders not buying into the relief rally. Investors are keen for early insight into whether China and other foreign governments remain eager to keep buying U.S. bonds, as we will be turning our attention to the $70 billion 5-year bonds auction today. And oil prices are down as Kashmir, which is a country in Central Asia, which is highly dependent on oil exports, struck a defiant tone about its rising oil output, erasing earlier gains on the back of U.S. sanctions against Iran, falling U.S. crude stockpiles, and Trump's softening tone when it comes to China. Brent crude is down 3% at $65 a barrel, and the yellow metal falling further from record highs as Trump's is continuing to backtrack, and we see gold is down 3% at $3,270, but platinum is up 2.7% at $969. Ashraf, global markets continued with positive momentum, but the JSE is down 0.3% and will be tracked mainly by our resources, which are down 5.6%, and specifically gold shares. And the rand weakened 0.2% against the US dollar is 1863, 24.74 against the pound, and 21.16 against the euro.
Okay, thanks for that, Makwe. Lots to consider and reflect on that as well. We'll have another market update coming up in about 50 minutes time, so listen out for that too. Right, let's talk about hospitals on fire right after this.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Now, what is going on with the Tembisa Hospital? There was news of a fire a couple of days ago at that hospital, and then what's happened next? There's now news of another fire. So 2 fires in the same hospital in a couple of days apart. There was a briefing, I understand, earlier today. Let's find out more about it with SABC News reporter Lerato Makola, who's been covering this story, joining us now on the line. Lerato, appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting on the National Pulse.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I would think it must have been a most confusing briefing session because it doesn't reflect now one fire in that same hospital, but now two.
Yes, indeed. We went to Tembisa Hospital where the fire broke earlier today in the morning. And when we arrived there in the morning, we engaged with some of the residents, and they raised their concerns, saying that they are concerned about their loved ones now. And they mentioned that they're asking themselves if their loved ones are safe or not. And when we arrived there, various teams were and are still inside the hospital doing their work. And the Department of Health, when we engaged with them, we engaged with the Department of Health spokesperson, Mutaletale Modiba. And he mentioned that the area that caught fire today is the area that is adjacent to the emergency exit, but it's not an area that was being used. He mentioned that the area has been cordoned off and the electricity supply had been cut off from the area from the first incident. As you remember that on Saturday last weekend, a fire broke in the same hospital, and patients are also able to receive care. The Department of Health in Gauteng mentioned that they can visit their loved ones and access the facility, and they've appealed to the community in Tembisa to be patient with them while they're dealing with the situation, because they've mentioned that this is not a normal situation. And the Deputy Minister of Health updated the media right now. He updated the media now. It started at 3 o'clock, and he did a walkabout before updating the media, checking the hospital, and he mentioned that this was not a continuation of Saturday's fire, as you'd remember that on Saturday a fire broke at the same hospital. And the minister says there's no direct linkage to the fire that broke on Saturday. And he mentioned that the forensic will do their investigations, find what triggered the fire, and they're still busy with their investigations, and the police as well, because the area that caught fire, he mentioned that that area is not being used, and the minister as well mentioned that the services are still continuing, and patients or anyone who takes their medication at the Tembisa Hospital, they can access the medication, and no injuries has been reported, and visitations are still allowed.
Okay, well, thank goodness there are no injuries, right? So I heard what you said, Dr. Joe Patla, effectively saying that they are unrelated. Having said that, what is your understanding based upon the briefing today in terms of what may have been the cause for fire number one and what may have been the cause for fire number two?
Well, they mentioned that they don't want the media or them to speculate on what caused the fire. They've mentioned that they will wait for the police, for the forensic to investigate, and they will update the media. So they didn't want anyone to speculate whether the fire was caused by someone, but they did mention that the forensic are busy doing their work, and the police as well are busy with the investigations, and they will update the media as soon as they have new information on the update.
Now, you mentioned, in terms of service for now, the patients are not being compromised in terms of assistance to them. Is that correct?
Yes, it's correct. Patients can access their medication. They can go to the hospital, and the services are still continuing. Minister mentioned that they can go to the hospital and visit their loved ones as well. Okay.
What about, there are outside the actual hospital, there are clinics in the surrounds. Does this have an impact on them in terms of one, the hospital's ability to do its work, and then B, the perhaps overload or the flow over now that may well spill over into the clinics?
Pardon, I didn't get your question. Could you please repeat?
I was saying there are clinics around the hospital, and the fact that there could be some disruption with regard to the hospital. Do we see an overflow that may impact on the clinics themselves?
Now, the minister didn't touch much on that. He only touched on the investigations, and he mentioned that he will update to the media, but he didn't touch much on that.
Okay. Is there anything else that you think we need to know?
There's nothing. I can just add that the minister has appealed. He has asked the community in Tembisa to be patient with the Department of Education.
Okay.
Department of Health, rather.
The question is how patient, isn't it? Appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us. And I'm sure we'll have an update from you if and when that need arises. I'm sure it will arise. So thank you for your time. Much appreciated. Okay, let's do this. I'm going to take some of your calls, and we do that pretty shortly. In fact, let's do this. Let's see if we can play some of the many WhatsApps we received, and I'll play them now. And a lot focuses on understandably, the issue of Paul Mashatile.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Emmanuel Mtola in Durban. I normally hear people say the politics is a dirty game. You see now, actually, it is true that, this issue of shooting on a deputy president is just a political persuasion. You see, just like what happened to Donald Trump. You see, so now Mashatile wanna be on the news. Thank you.
Okay, got that. Another one saying, look what happened to Donald Trump. And why? But why would we think it's the same thing, isn't it? Let's pick out another.
Afternoon, Ashra. I think Dennis Bloom must go and read, or he must also check the news. He must do his homework. It's very disappointing from his side to come and make such statement to say, I don't have any information or evidence of saying someone who wanted to kill or assassinate Donald Trump was not arrested, and there was no evidence. He must simply make his homework, and I think he's very poor. So it means he's not informed. Very disappointing. LMT from Matlosana.
Okay, but
thank you very much.
Maybe it's early days, because sometimes if you don't know,
After Nasraf, this time from Bloemfontein, I hope the minister, Ronald Lamola, and the president have spoken to Lesotho president about this parliamentarian that is going on. He even went to America about this land claim, the Free State and some parts of South Africa that are belonging to Lesotho, apparently, according to him. But there was a ruling by United African Union to respect the borders that they were founded by the colonizers.
Interesting. I mean, I was asked the question the other day, how did Lesotho come about in South Africa? So of course, all called different regions, and why would it be that small place always retained its independence? I'm not advocating for anything, but it is a question to ask, isn't it?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I was listening to Ronald Lamola on the visit to Lesotho. Fair enough to put a good picture in terms of trade and everything, but I feel he missed an opportunity to make an emphasis about the Lesotho nationals without documentation here in South Africa that are terrorizing all the communities in each and every province with brutal, gruesome killings that are very, very bad, Ashraf. I wish you could have just made that emphasis that the Lesotho citizens must come with proper documentation.
Okay, that issue of documentation is very much part of our national psyche, isn't it? Right, there's more to come, and we've got some other big issues we're going to be talking about, and maybe more an opportunity to get a sense of what you feel about those issues right after this.
Meet Maria. Meet her family, the Ramirez. One wrong step and they will have you swimming with the fishes. Meet Amadeo, a trained lawyer and member of the rival business clan, the Mateus. The two fall in love, and Maria's dreams of a happily ever after change when Madeo is murdered at their wedding. Their daughter, Jo, despises her mother's humble beginnings and will do anything to steal all of Maria's fortune. This is the world of Sweet Diva. Airs weekdays at 4:30 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
First Take SA, 5 to 6 a.m.
President Cyril Ramaphosa says business cannot dictate terms to the government or the ANC as tensions rise with its GNU partner, the Democratic Alliance, over the national budget. Mr. Monaghed, now as the president of the Black Business Council, how do you interpret this statement?
Part of the problem that we need then to confront as a country is that you cannot then be held at ransom by a particular party. They are not risking an event where they exit the government of national unity because there is a trade war. We have the time to be fighting over our petty issues whereas Rome is burning.
Elvis Preslin on SAFM. X at SAFM Radio, and at Ashraf Garda.
Okay, I did ask the question whether you believe in that story of that it's true, the assassination attempt on Paul Mashatile, because many people are doubting it. So what do you think? Yes, it's true, or no, it's not, according to your understanding. I'm not saying what you're saying is definitive. Yes or no, you can WhatsApp us right away, just with a simple text message, yes, no, and then add your reasons why. I'll try and read them as soon as I can. But you can also post it on our social media posts. Just tag us on SAFM Radio and myself, Ashraf Garda. In the meantime, we have your views. Butana in Rosebank. Go for it.
Good afternoon, my brother.
Yeah, how's it, man?
I can't believe that story. The person that is presenting it, also you doubt the person. He says the first thing they thought it was they were throwing stones. And then later they realized, okay, there are bullets. Yet he's got security around him. How can you throw 4 stones on the car that is moving? And he didn't even share that information with his comrade in the house. He must come with another story. That one, we can't believe it. In particular, coming from the chaps of the ANC. In particular. No, sorry.
Okay, you don't believe it. Butana's another one. There's like a long queue of people who don't believe it. Thanks for that, Butana. Well, I mean, who believes it? And I'm just amazed how many people do not believe it. I made the point, I was away for the last 4 or 5 days, so come back like today, first day back at work proper, and you hear the story about what happened over the weekend, and then you get more detail about, yes, there were actual shots and not rocks or stones, and yet people have dismissed it. Now, why would you be so convinced about that? Jangasi in the Eastern Cape also wants to talk about Mashatile. Go for it.
Hello, Ashraf.
Hi, how's it, man? Go for it. What's your point?
Good. Yes. Yes, I do believe the statement of the attempted killing on the deputy president. That's one, Ashraf. But secondly, I think it is unfair to even pose the question. In a country like ours, where there's so much high rate of killings, murders, and political killings, it is unfair to want the nation to say they do believe that this was an attempt to the life of the deputy president of the country. I think it's a kind of heartless. I don't know what we have become as a...
Well, I hear you, and I'll tell you why. I mean, the only reason I would pose it now, I mean, it's because so many people are calling in and they're dismissing it themselves, and not just listeners. We're getting organizations, lobby groups who are saying, we just think it's nonsense. So it is in that context, which is not the context about loss of life, actually. Although I know an attempt on life would mean just that. But it is in the context of people are dismissing it because they think it's just a setup to try and sort out all wounds within a single political party faction. So this is not a definitive reply or an investigative answer. It is simple. What do you make of it? Do you believe, as many do believe, that in fact it's been set up?
Yes, Ashraf. But SABC has a duty to educate people. The National Commissioner of Police yesterday released a statement saying they know that this incident did happen and that they are busy investigating. Why would we go against that now and pose a question that seeks to doubt the integrity of the National Police Commissioner, the integrity of the...
Okay, I hear you. I think I think you raise an important point, and I certainly am not one who's doubting it. I'm just saying there are people who are still doubting it. And therefore, in a talk show format, because this is what it is, right, where it's a forum for debate, because otherwise we'll agree on everything, there are people who actually do doubt it in spite of the report. That's really the point. Can I leave it at that? But I think I value what you've said too, and I think it's an important contribution you've made to the show. Mbowana in Mahikeng, go for it. Hello.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Yeah, how's it, man? Right, what's your point?
I want to talk about our constitution.
Yeah.
You see, our courts are using this constitution, and then our politicians are running to the courts, whereas our parliament should be stronger than our courts. Because why? Parliament passes the laws, but then we are rushing to use the constitution that was passed by the apartheid era without parliament. I have a question for that. That's why former president always he talk about change the constitution, but the problem is he don't explain what does he mean. But I can see there's a problem there. Because can't be always the politicians are busy running to the courts instead of addressing the issues which we people want service delivery.
Okay. Well, there we are. Let's leave it at that. I mean, there's lots of speculation around that one too. And again, further input. Let's get that too. Let's see. Let's get Sello's thoughts in Mokopane here. Sello, again about Mashatile. Go for it.
Thanks, Ashraf, for taking my call. Ashraf, look, I think a caller before the last one, he raised a very important thing. Like today, when you interview, who's that one? The first interview that you had, Dennis.
Yes, Dennis Bloom. That's right.
He is no expert of being a police.
I agree with you.
None whatsoever. And I think Ashraf, we missed there. We should at least put someone who has an expert in police or something like that, and then he can at least put his view there. So that to educate us, like the previous caller said, and it is very, very important.
All right, I think you're right. I think. Let me say this much: that where you're right is that, but this is important too. That often as a team, and that's between myself and Keys and Temba, the production team as well. We would reflect different views. So clearly, Dennis Bloom has got one view. He's not the police, I agree, but he has a view and a suspicion that this is just a setup. That's his opinion. We're not couching it as a fact, but there could be another opinion. But it's possible we on the show today, tomorrow, we may reflect 2 or 3 different opinions on that show, and then you can decide for yourself, unless we actually get a confirmation as to what actually happened. Yeah. Okay. I think you're gone, but the point I think is made from your side as well. Let's get one more quick thought before we get to the news.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Well, the story of Paul Mashatile, I've got one thing to say, is that we don't care. We simply just don't care what happens. We are really tired of the ANC and their lies and all that. We just don't care. We have our own lives to live. We have our own problems. And lucky for him, he's got security that protects him 24/7. We don't have that security, so we simply don't care. Thank you, Ashraf.
Okay, thanks. But you see, that's it. To the callers that we had before that, there's the facts, but in a talk show format, we reflect opinion. And this is opinion. So here you get a person who's saying, well, he's not even saying I. He speaks on behalf of I don't know how many people. We don't care. We don't care about what? I'm not sure. We don't care about the fact that there's an assassination attempt, or we don't care about the fact that, we should leave out the word fact. We don't care about the point that some people believe that it's true or not true, or it may be set up, right? We don't care. How telling is that? Let's get the news. It's 5 o'clock. Here's Kholofelo Tefu.
Thanks, Ashraf. Top stories this hour. IEC takes democracy to schools and a man killed trying to rob a pedestrian. Good afternoon. The IEC says it will launch a civic democracy drive targeting young learners and students. Briefing the media in Centurion today, IEC Chief Electoral Officer Saima Mabolo highlighted initiatives the Commission will take on in preparation for the local government elections next year. The lack of youth engagement came into strong focus. People between 18 and 34 years old make up a third of the South African population. However, they account for just 28% of registered voters. Mamabolo says the initiative is aimed at a culture of civic responsibility.
The drill will focus on all university campuses and 180 technical and vocational training colleges, as well as private colleges nationwide. This ensuring that young persons are not only informed but also actively participate in electoral processes. Additionally, the Commission is deploying campus-based registration ambassadors to assist students at the various tertiary institutions to register and update their registration details.
The Special Investigating Unit's Chief National Investigations Officer, Zodwa Cesibe, says they have offered evidence in support of the 29 criminal referrals related to the SABC that the SIU has submitted to the NPA for prosecutions. She appeared before Parliament's Standing Committee on Public Accounts to give an update on the investigations by the SIU on various investigations at the public broadcaster. One case is currently on trial. In total, Cesibe says the value of the cases amount to over 250 million rand.
They involve private companies who contracted with SABC, its directors and former SABC directors. The combined value of the cases is around 267 million rand. The charges vary from theft, fraud, contravention of Companies Act and PFMA. These NPA referrals were done between 2018 and 2020.
A man has been shot and killed in an alleged botched robbery at Kenilworth Road in Sydenham in Durban. ALS paramedic spokesperson Gareth Jamieson has said that the man, believed to be in his 20s, was killed after he allegedly tried to rob a pedestrian.
ALS paramedics responded to numerous calls of medical assistance needed. Paramedics arrived on scene to find a man in an open field who had sustained gunshot wounds to his chest. The man showed no signs of life and was declared deceased on the scene by paramedics. It is alleged that the patient had tried to rob a pedestrian when the man defended himself. However, SAPS were in attendance, so will investigate the circumstances leading up to the shooting.
A new witness has taken the stand at the reopened inquest into the death of former ANC President Chief Albert Luthuli in the Pietermaritzburg High Court in KZN. Tulani Tusi, who is a heritage educator at the Luthuli Museum, has presented images of a tour he took with the team of investigators in the reopened inquest. He says the aim was to retrace Luthuli's steps and to discover how he really died. Luthuli died in July 1967, reportedly after he was struck by a goods train. For the past 57 years, the ANC and the Luthuli family have been disputing this version.
My lady, I explained that I was fortunate to find this site, which is an old bridge. I'll refer as an old bridge because when I went there, started to see this bridge, I had to compare with the image of bridge that speak about the death of Chief Albert Luthuli. So this is a bridge which is in Gledo at Inkukwini area. My lady, this is the old bridge. So this bridge I presented to the task team that I was taking them through to the route.
And finally, Ukrainian officials say a Russian drone attack on a bus has killed at least 9 people in the city of Marinets. Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. In the latest sign of strains between the United States and other allies, scheduled talks in London between American, European and Ukrainian negotiators have been downgraded. The BBC's Danny Aberhart reports.
The talks were going to be attended by the US Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, and the main envoy for Russian talks from President Trump, Steve Witkoff. They both pulled out of the talks. The British Foreign Secretary, for example, won't be attending now, and the talks will be held behind closed doors at a technical level between officials. So very much not the sort of talks that we saw, for example, last week in France, which were much more high level. This is clearly a bad move from a European perspective. It's a step backwards.
The top story this hour, the IEC says it will launch a civic democracy drive targeting young learners and students. Briefing the media in Centurion today, IEC Chief Electoral Officer Simon Mabolo highlighted initiatives the Commission will take on in preparation for the local government elections next year. Headlines at 5:30 for SFM News. I'm Kolofelo Defo.
In sports, Parliament demands 2023 World Cup financial report from Netball South Africa. VAR set up in SA making progress, and Warriors find 100,000 rands in transformation dispute. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
M1 southbound is queuing towards Boysons, and the N12 R24 westbound in Bedfordview has a stationary vehicle before Giluli's interchange. In KZN, on the N3 westbound, queuing traffic reported towards Spaghetti Junction. In Cape Town, the N7 northbound in Dunoon is slow moving at Malibongwe Drive off-ramp, and on the M5 northbound, a crash reported at the N2 highway. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation.
The Seagulls believe their fighting spirit will match their style of football as they chase valuable points.
Pedro in front of the Leicester fans against Hermanson, and he rolls it home. João Pedro gives Albion the lead.
While the Hammers have a big task to prevail away from home.
Clips it in there, and Bowen! And West Ham United have turned this game around.
This is the Premier League. Catch the nail-biting action. Brighton and Hove Albion versus West Ham United FC on Saturday 26 April at 3:30 p.m. live on S3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
He's short, loud, and definitely not a licensed therapist, but he's asking the hard questions. It's Heart to Heart with Kevin, the only talk show where the guests spill the tea and Kevin spills the jokes. Real talk, real laughs, and real short host. Heart to Heart with Kevin, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on S3.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Have you been following the story of the 90,000 Rand laptop or laptops scandal? We'll talk about that in just a moment, right? But first things first, there's a statement from Advocate Mthunzi Maga, who is the NPA national spokesperson. This is important. He's saying the National Prosecuting Authority has bolstered its internal team of experienced sexual offences prosecutors with a senior counsel to assess and advise on the prospects of appealing the Omotoso judgment. This decision is informed by the importance and the complexity of the matter, and the fact that the state can only appeal an acquittal judgment in terms of Section 319 of the Criminal Procedure Act. This team is studying the transcript and the three other relevant decisions that were handed down in the course of this trial will provide a memorandum of advice and opinion on the appealability of the judgment. The NPA will announce his decision, taking into account the memorandum of advice from the NPA team and the opinion from senior counsel. The judgment has had a devastating impact on our fight against sexual and gender-based violence and has undermined confidence in the criminal justice system, with dire implications for the courageous victims in the matter. The NPA is exploring all options to ensure that justice prevails within the confines of the law. Well, there we are. There's a lot that was said there, besides the fact that they've now, well, two things. They've bolstered the internal team of experienced sexual offences prosecutors to present a better case, really, in appealing the Omotoso judgment and making the point the judgment has had a devastating impact on our fight against sexual and gender-based violence and undermine confidence in the criminal justice system. That's a lot to say. Let's talk about another issue that does undermine lots of confidence in terms of the way government does its business with regard to procurement and who benefits from it, right after this.
Do great solutions start with good conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Okay, let's get to this issue. The State IT Agency released a statement earlier today denying involvement in the procurement of overpriced laptops by Mpumalanga's Basic Education Department. You know, that story has been doing the rounds for the last few days. Let's get the thoughts of Tlhadi. Tlhadi, who's the State IT Agency spokesperson. Tlhadi, good to connect with you on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good to speak to you again.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been far too long, in fact, right? Okay, let's get to the matter at hand. There's a denial from your agency, regarding this issue. What is your understanding, then, firstly, of what has actually happened?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. I think we need to locate everything that is happening within the context of the legislation that has created or established the agency SETA as we know it today, noting what its mandate is. Part of its mandate has to do with the provisioning of ICT services and solutions to government. The legislation is quite specific in terms of how to go about doing this. It makes a provision in terms of the identification of the institutions of state that are supposed to procure these services from SETA. And it makes a split into two. It says these services must be provided by SETA as well as through SETA. In other words, in instances where SETA is not able to provide whatever that is required in this instance, SETA will not be able to develop and put together a laptop. A process that must be followed has to be the second part, which is through SETA. And in this instance, we are talking about a dispensation that has been created by SETA in line with the legislation, where we are referring to the existence of the transversal panels that are in place, on the basis of which government departments can use these panels in order to procure whatever products that are falling within the scope of such panels. So what we are trying to establish here is to say, based on information that is in the media, what are the facts, and based on what the NEC has presented in the legislature, to say that the procurement of these laptops was done through a SETA approved panel or contract. And in order to establish the actual facts in relation to that, we have then reached out to the department and to the province here, where we were meeting today with the officials in the office of the Premier, in order to establish these facts. Let me also indicate that there is some information that we have at our disposal. This information indicates that we do not have any record of that kind of a transaction having taken place. And secondly, if the platform that you are referring to, the dispensation, which is the transversal panel, if that panel was used, there should have been some form of an engagement with a supplier in order to find a more equitable price in relation to this. And the third part of it is to really to understand the specifics in relation to the type of the laptop that must have been purchased here. But based on what we understand has been given as a description of the laptops in question, it appears that it was quite pricey.
Well, it certainly appears to be quite pricey, as many say. I mean, what then is your understanding about, the allegations that it's quite pricey, which can only then suggest that there's something untoward?
It is difficult to resist that conclusion that there's a chance that something was not in line with what the dispensation provides for, especially when you also take into account that the panel that we are referring to, a transversal panel, simply refers to a list of pre-approved service providers and suppliers where certain requirements SETA has satisfied itself that they have been met insofar as the quality of services and the products that must be delivered. Also noting that they must have been sourced from certain specific OEMs. And thirdly, there's an issue of a price threshold that relates to this, in this instance, to the laptops. In other words, the distributor or supplier does not have a blank check in terms of what markup they can put before they sell an item to any government department. This is provided for within that particular framework. And based on what we are reading, our reading of the situation is that everything is in excess and it is outside what we understand to be the case. So This is what we are seeking to establish. We should be able to provide an update on this matter following our meeting with the officials from the Mpumalanga.
Okay, because I think it's pretty obvious if a laptop, for example, is worth 30,000 rands and someone does a deal for 80, 90,000 rands, for example, how does that not send the alarm bells racing? Or alternatively, why would anybody with no evil intentions be in a position of decision making and willingly pay that much only because that's what the people in the invoice asked for? And okay, I understand. It's true. So what happens next in terms of your investigation?
Absolutely, you're spot on your comment, Asaf. What we are saying that the panel is there, although we are not necessarily promoting the point that I'm about to make. All the same, it does not take away that as an option from a science department where they say we have followed the law. This is what the law says, not what CITA said. The law says that we need to follow this process as provided for in terms of the CITA Act that establishes the agency. And notwithstanding the fact that we have followed this process, this piece of an item, a laptop, it is coming at 91,000 rand when in the market it is available at a far cheaper price. So we are of the view that it will assist, it will save government. Hence, we are making a point that our mandate and responsibility is to build a capability of government and not to destroy it. And if a client says that it is not helping us to go through CITA, we need to go to the market directly. There is a provision for that where you could approach the minister for deviation. And there are exceptional circumstances where the minister will grant that deviation. We are not sitting right now with information that even suggests that this is an option that was explored.
Okay. So just to confirm then, what would the price have been, if you can just confirm that, if it was procured through, let's call it the normal channel?
So as I say, we have some information right now that says the panel, there is no record that this particular transaction went through the panel. And the second point that we are making is that we want to establish the actuals in terms of what the make and the model of this laptop is. When we come back to provide an update here, we will be having that specific information to also indicate what our panels provide for in terms of what should be the markup. But based on the general comment and the description in general, we are of the view that this is outside what should have been procured, including the markup within the panel as it exists. Right?
But you don't know the actual price, even more or less.
We cannot do that because we don't know if it is an entry or it is a SI-end product.
Okay.
And on the basis of that, the prices could really be chop and cheese if I were to speculate on that.
Okay.
I think it is important that we exercise patience a little bit so that we come with an update on the matter.
Okay, leave it at that. Spokesperson for the State IT Agency, Tlali, appreciate your time. That story of the 90,000 rand laptop scandal, that's not going to go away. And we'll see what comes out of that one. But I think they've been very decisive in following the procedures to take action to say we have to investigate this fully. But they already agree that this price is completely out. What the actual price is, well, we shall find out sooner, don't you think, right? There's a development with regard to applications for school learners for next year in the Western Cape. It's quite significant. We'll talk about it next.
The Red Devils want to add more heat in Cairo to make life difficult for Masandawana, but Kabuyelo refuse to shake and break. They are on a mission to elevate their game and march to the final with big smiles. It is do or die. This is the second leg semi-final encounter of the Total Energies CAF Champions League. Catch the incredible action of African football. Al Ahly FC versus Mamelodi Sundowns FC. This Friday, 25 April at 5:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, S3, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, and SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Confession Booth. A place where the sin-laden soul can offload their transgressions, all in the hopes of finding reprieve for their sins. Stolen your co-worker's lunch? Then the ordinary confession booth with your regular priest will do. But murdered your long-time nemesis and dumped their body in a vat of acid? Oh, then you better hope you're not in Father Brown's confession booth, because he is bent on catching all the bad guys. Tune into Father Brown, Mondays to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Kathy Motlatlana on SAFM.
Why are we getting calls from residents in your province talking about how they're finding young kids who are hitchhiking to school on a day-to-day basis?
There was a delay. Was there a communication? Yes, there was a communication with the commuter forums. Was there communication with...
It's not good enough.
Yes, there was
it's not good enough, Oshebeng. I'm saying that.
It will never be good enough.
No, you can't say that. You can't say it'll never be good enough.
The fact remains
it's not your child that is standing in the street having to find a way to get to work. That is what the people in your area are going through, Oshebeng. It's not about being personal. This is personal for the people who are having to go through this every single day. It is absolutely personal for them. That's Oshebeng Konyadidze. He's the Director of Communications in the Northwest Department of Community Safety and Transport.
The Talking Point with Kathy Motlatlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday. X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
So it's still in the first quarter really of 2025, and already people have their eyes on 2026, particularly, I would think parents who need to register their children for now grade R, which is compulsory, my understanding, and then, grade 1 as well as placements for grade 8 as well. So there's some significant news regarding that with the Department of Education in the Western Cape. Let's get the thoughts of Bronak Hammond, the spokesperson for that region. Bronak, appreciate your time as always. Thanks for connecting. I said the region, spokesperson for the Department of Education in that region. Appreciate your time. Hi. It's a big difference. Got that. Yeah.
Hi, and good afternoon to your listeners.
Thank you. Right. Tell me I understand there's some significant developments in terms of this early registration process that you'd like to share.
Yeah, well, look, we obviously want as many parents as possible to apply on time in this early application period, because it allows us then to plan, for areas where we can see there's greater demand, where we need to add more classrooms to schools or even build new schools. And, in terms of our Rapid School Build program, we would be able to actually then put resources into certain areas and actually fulfill that mandate in terms of building that before the start of the school year the next year. So we do a campaign every year. It's called Don't Wait. It's quite simple. Don't wait and apply now. And we were very pleased that this year we received 12,577 more applications than the previous year, and it's been increasing year on year. So more parents are coming out to register their children or apply to make an application for schools for the next year early on, which is very helpful to the department.
Okay, so when you say 12,500 applications, that doesn't necessarily mean that these are going to be 12,000 new learners compared to year on year. These are just applications at the same time last year. I mean, that's what you're comparing, isn't it? The earliness of the application.
Yes. Yeah, so in terms of if we compare last year's application period to this one, we've received 12,000 more. Look, this year we've got 23,000 grade 1 learners that we've had the applications for, and 86,000 grade 8 learners. And then separate to that, we've got 54,000 grade R learners that have applied. So that's the numbers that we are looking at now. But we do know that in the grade 8s, because we got grade 7s that we can track, we are still needing to, there's still approximately 8,000 parents that still have not applied. Mm-hmm. And so we are now focusing on them, calling the schools, because we know who they are in terms of our data, and actually trying to get them to apply so that, we really want to get 100% all learners in a school before December this year.
And what then do you attribute this record early numbers? I mean, it seems logical to me, but there may be a specific reason behind it, why there's an acceleration of early applications.
I think, it's no secret that in the Western Cape there's demand for schooling, and especially for particular schools in the Western Cape. We always have issues at the beginning of the year in terms of late applications, learners especially coming from the Eastern Cape. But I think because of that, as well as our campaigns, we've got buses, we've got radio campaigns, we've got social media and so forth, like to actually just say to parents, please do not wait. And also the fact that if you don't apply now in this first period, you will only be considered for the second application period. So you're really losing your shot at those, those preferred schools, because they will be oversubscribed by the time we get over the first application period.
Okay. Let's talk about the preferred schools. I mean, what's the difference between the preferred schools and the less preferred schools?
Well, we call them schools of choice because, like in any country, you'll find schools that there's more demand. There could be because they've got good sporting, achievements or good academic achievements. We've got one school here, Claremont High School, which is notoriously, for the last few years, has received the most applications in any other school in the province. And that's they're getting 4,000 applications for just 120 spaces for grade 8 next year.
So that's one school you're referring to, yeah. Mm.
That's Claremont High School, and that's a maths and science focus school, and so that's a lot of so it depends on what the school has to offer. Some schools are very good at rugby, and a lot of parents would like them to go there, or it could be an arts focused school. So it depends on what the preferred choice of that child is, and the reputation of that school, and of course safety. That is also a thing that parents consider.
So what then happens? I mean, so I understand the demand for schools that offer so much more, but what happens clearly in a case like the Claremont one? They can't cope. I mean, numbers just tell you that there's just no way, right? How are you getting to a situation where all schools in all regions can get to a level of excellence no matter where they are, so that in fact people will be heading to any one of those schools and be getting the same sort of service delivery in education?
Yes, 100%. And that is exactly what we're trying to achieve. And we've seen it in Khayelitsha, for example. Over the last 12 years, we've focused a lot of energy in terms of providing resources, additional resources, teachers, infrastructure to that area. And the schools are doing remarkably well. We've seen some of our top schools are now coming out of the Khayelitsha area. So, learners that would have traveled, long distances to try and actually go to a school that is a school of choice somewhere else are now actually fighting over schools in Khayelitsha in terms of, because they've done so well over the past few years. They've jumped literally 30 to 40%.
Okay, wow.
They're getting up there in the 90s and 100%. So it's really, that's the aim, is that every child will want to go to their local community school because they're all excellent schools.
Okay,
and that's what we're trying to achieve in the West Cape.
Well, we'll certainly follow that story and that trend, right? Is there any other insight as we get to news time that you'd like to share that you think is really important?
Well, I think for those parents that have applied, and even those that are still to apply, please apply. And then that you also let us know if your contact details change. I think that's one of our biggest problems, is that we can't get a hold of you. And that also delays the process in terms of placement of learners at the beginning of the year.
Just very quickly, is there a reason why you find that some parents actually do not apply early and run the risk of their children not being accepted in certain schools? I mean, could you sort of get it down to say that's an insight we've got, that's a human behavior thing, this is why?
I hate to say this, Ashraf, but like some parents are just, they're not interested, to be honest. That's some children face big challenges out there. Their parents are, involved in substance abuse or gangsterism, and that's not their priority for their child. And that's really a sad reality. But that's when we are trying to work with the principals in terms of trying to get them to actually support us, trying to get that information, and even if we need to intervene to try and get that learner application from their parent, or we'll do it ourselves.
Okay, that's where we're going to leave it. Bronagh Hammond, spokesperson for the Department of Education in the Western Cape. Let's get the news headlines. Here's Kolofelo Tefu.
Thanks, Ashraf. In the headlines this hour, the South African Weather Service has issued a yellow level 4 warning of disruptive rains that could lead to flooding in most parts of KZN. The severe weather conditions will persist until Friday. Meanwhile, in Johannesburg, Emergency Management Services has urged residents to continue exercising caution and avoid crossing rivers as persistent rain continues. Flash floods have been reported in some low-lying areas following the recent rains. And the IEC says it will launch a civic democracy drive targeting young people Briefing the media in Centurion today, IEC Chief Electoral Officer Simon Mabolo highlighted initiatives the Commission will take on in preparation for the local government elections next year. I'll have the details at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, on the M1 southbound, queuing traffic reported towards Omonde and Barry Hatzog Avenue northbound in Melville, slow moving towards Judith Road. In KZN, on the N3 westbound, queuing traffic towards Spaghetti Junction, and the N3 westbound has a stationary truck reported before the M13 Paradise Valley interchange. In Cape Town, on Kloofneck Road in Tamboerskloof, a crash reported near Furdale Avenue and slow moving traffic along the Campground Road, Palmyra Road routes. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Right to me, netball, South Africa, the net and the ball, but they're in trouble.
Yeah.
What?
The Department of Sports, Arts and Culture have requested Netball South Africa to submit a status report for the 2023 Netball World Cup within 14 days. The federation appeared before Parliament on Tuesday and were unable to present a detailed financial statement. Now they've been given time to specify all the required information. In football, the process of introducing video assistant referee in South Africa is moving quickly. This is following the availability of funding to implement the project. SAFA CEO Lydia Munyabao has confirmed that following the closing of the tender 2 days ago, the next step is to appoint a tender committee which will go through the approved VAR suppliers who have applied in this process. And currently, there are only 3 match officials in the country fully trained on VAR, and those officials include Abongile Tom, Akona Makalima, and Zakele Siwela, while others currently still training. Also, the president of the Confederation of African Football, Dr. Patrice Motsepe, has announced the renewal of the partnership between Africa Global Logistics and CAF. Motsepe says the continuation of the partnership with AGL will allow the federation to continue the work on the continent. Elsewhere, Arsenal play Crystal Palace tonight. Knowing defeat will see Liverpool win the Premier League, and Bukayo Saka is available for selection after he was forced off before the hour mark on Sunday with an Achilles issues. In cricket, South Africa have fined the Warriors 100,000 rands for failing to meet transformation requirements. The Warriors failed to field enough black African players in a match against the Dolphins in February, where all teams were required to field 3 black African players. The Warriors fielded only 2, and the Warriors should have asked Cricket South Africa for permission to not adhere to the requirements, and they also lost log points because of their breach. Meanwhile, Proteas woman batter Lara Goodall has downplayed the pressure towards her after receiving a late call-up to the team currently touring Sri Lanka. Goodall was not in the original 15-player contingent to play the Islanders and India in an ODI tri-series starting on the 29th of April, but was added to the list last week Thursday following an illness to Annika Bosch.
Look, I wouldn't say it's an opportunity to prove myself. I think a lot of the coaches see the potential in me to be really good for South Africa in the ODI format. So I think all I want to do is my main focus is just doing well for the country so that I can and make the World Cup at the end of later this year. I think that's my main focus, and then everything will take care of itself. So it's not about putting pressure on myself to prove a point or any of those things. I think it's just about going out there and enjoying my cricket, and just throwing my name in the hat for the World Cup later this year. So that's my only focus, and it has been my focus ever since all of this happened. Well, it's always been my focus.
Meanwhile, Simone Biles says that she's unsure if she'll compete at the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles. The American is the world's most decorated gymnast and has won 7 Olympic gold medals, with 3 of those coming at the 2024 Games in Paris. And according to her, she says that she has achieved a lot in her career already. And if she is to compete at the 2028 Olympics, she should be somehow motivated. In weightlifting news, SA athlete Will Swart is aiming to impress at the Senior Weightlifting Championships in Mauritius this week. The 27-year-old is working his way towards representing the country at the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow and qualifying for a continental competition this month, which has given him a boost.
I'm hoping so. So normally the week before competition, you'll do what's called a taper or a deload. So the amount of volume that you normally do will come down quite a lot, so that on competition day you're feeling, rested and recovered, and your body's ready to fire. Because I've got the big comp in 2 weeks, I didn't do that for this competition. So I was not feeling 100%, but still happy with my lifts. I got 2 out of my 3 snatches, and my clean and jerks only got my first one, which still good. I think it was the heaviest I've ever opened, so it was my heaviest first attempt. Then narrowly missed the second, and then missed the third one as well. So, yeah, a lot of takeaways. I think could have been better, but I think when I've rested and recovered a bit, hopefully the weights that I missed today I'll be able to do nice and easily in Mauritius.
All right, I'll have more on other sports tomorrow.
I want to ask you before you go, that issue about the cricket quota, we're not discussing that. We've discussed that before. The rules say they have to have 3 black African players, right? Got that. You said if there's motivation why they can't for the day, they can request and say, this is why you have to give us the leeway. So why didn't they do that?
I don't understand why they didn't do it. The word was one of their players actually fell ill, who was supposed to play on that day. And I'm assuming they just thought that they can just explain it out at a later stage.
Who's in charge? I'm just trying to think. Okay. That's like the most obvious thing. Even a WhatsApp. Aren't they on the same WhatsApp groups? It's like, sorry guys, our player's sick, man. We have to pick another person.
Well, now they're going to pay 100,000 towards Cricket South Africa's grassroots cricket development initiatives.
Okay.
To learn their lesson.
So there's some beneficiary for their mishap. Isn't that amazing? Use WhatsApp. It'll get things done very quickly.
With that said, ke natubeng kgapele modimo.
Switch to stream with SABC Plus. No subscription fees. Stream anywhere, anytime. 0 subscription fees. Download SABC Plus on Android or iOS and watch the Betway Premier Soccer League, the English Premier League, and the Bundesliga live. You can also catch up with Uzalo, Skim Sam, Generations on demand and listen to your favorite radio stations live. Ukhozi, Umhlobo Wenene, Radio 2000 and 5FM, all for free. Switch to stream with SABC Plus now. No subscription fees. Stream anywhere, anytime with SABC Plus.
The Spanish Princess series continues the story of Queen Catherine and Henry VIII. Catherine's struggle to produce an heir places her marriage and position in the court at risk, and she's haunted by her choices from the past. Despite proving herself a politician, a diplomat, and a national inspiration, and even a military commander, Catherine must battle to save her love with the king and to preserve the peace and prosperity of their reign. The Spanish Princess Season 2 airs Saturdays at 9:30 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Okay, let's get to those numbers. Normally it's Jimmy, but it's not the Jimmy Show. It's the Dudu Ramela Show. You're the SAFM Market Update. Dudu, good to connect with you. What are the big stories today?
For today, at least. Good to hear you again, Ashraf. Thank you very much. We'll get into the big stories a little bit later on, if you don't mind, please. Let's just take a look at those numbers that you mentioned and see how we fared on the markets. To help us do exactly that, we've got MoneyWeb's contributor, Henku Kriel, who is standing by. A very good evening to you, Henku. A gloomy evening in Johannesburg. Is that reflected on the markets or not really today?
Good evening, Dudu, to you as well, to our listeners. No, not gloomy at all on the financial markets. In fact, it's a very green day, and we touched on the friction between Donald Trump and Jerome Powell last night just very quickly, and we can see that drive the markets again today, especially the US markets and the European markets. The Dow Jones and the S&P 500, both of them at the moment 2.5% stronger, And look at the Nasdaq, it's up 4% at the moment. Then in Europe, the FTSE 100 finished 1.5% stronger. The DAX in Germany, 3.5% up, and the CAC 40 enjoyed 2.5% today. Then I wouldn't call it gloomy because the JSE here by us traded in the green most of the day, and then in the 11th hour right at the end, it decided to just dip into the red, and it finished 0.07% weaker. That's not even 0.1% down for the day, but nevertheless finished at a level of 89,847 points. The industrial index gained 1.3% today. The financial index 1.6% up, but the resources index fell through the floor today. It lost 5%. Here are some of the reasons for that. Aspen, I feel sorry for the shareholders of Aspen because Aspen lost 31% today, and that is after Aspen last night, after the markets closed, brought out a sort of declaration where they said they expect that their profits are going to be a lot less than anticipated because they've declared a dispute with one of their major suppliers. So Aspen today 31% weaker, but there's also Amplats, which lost 14%. Then Harmony and Goldfields, each 9.5% down. DRD Gold, Anglo Gold and Tugela lost 7% today, and there was also ARM finishing 5.8% weaker. Some good news, as we can see from the financial index today. Capitec had a wonderful day, 7.5% up. Prosus and Naspers, they each gained 4.8%. There's also Glencore, Kumba and Anglo. They each gained 4%, followed by BHP, Truworths and Barloworld, finishing the day 3% stronger. Let's have a look at what the exchange rate is doing. Very much as it was last night and this morning when markets opened. At the moment, you'll pay for a US dollar 18 Rand 64 cents, for a euro 21 Rand 18, for an Australian dollar 11 Rand 90, and a British pound will cost you 24 Rand 75 cents. Gold price still sky high, but cooling down a little bit, now sitting at $3,300 an ounce. Silver, $33.40. Platinum, $970. Palladium will cost you $930 an ounce. Brent crude trading even at a lower price today, now sitting at $65.80 a barrel. I'll finish off with the price of a Bitcoin, now trading at $92,500, but that is still 1,745,000 Rand. Dudu, that's how the markets perform today, and let's see how things pan out tomorrow.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Henku Kriel, MoneyWeb's contributor. In a nutshell, it may be cold outside, but it's warm on the markets. Here's what you can look forward to, Ashraf. As you heard from Henku, Capitec reporting a very healthy set of results. And get this, the bank now serves more than half of the South African adult population. We're going to be speaking to Gerrie Fourie, who is the CEO of Capitec, on this performance and what they put it down to. Inflation, as you know by now, has dropped to 2.7%, but is it enough? More so for you and I. We take a look at long-term lessons for navigating volatility in light of the Liberation Day tariffs that were declared by the US President Donald Trump. Tamron Lamb is head of retail at Allan Gray. She will give you some tips if you are an investor on how to navigate this very volatile time. And we're going to have our executive lounge feature. It is Wednesday after all. We speak to Mani de Wet. He's the co-founder and MD of Planet Fitness, from a commercial pilot to a fitness fundi, maybe is not the word. He's like right in there. He's solid now. So we're going to be speaking to him as part of our executive lounge feature. All that and more coming up with the SAFM market update with MoneyWeb at the top of 6. It's back to you, Ashraf.
Perfect, Judo. And of course, that shows 6 to 7. Looking forward to that as per always, right? It means now we have got, let's call it a clear run, 14, 15 minutes to engage with you, the audience, wherever you may be in the country, around the world. First time callers, if you are that person, let me know, because I want to give you a shout out, male, female, young people as well. It's one thing talking about young people voting in election. What about you voting on air? Because really, when you get on air, you effectively lobby a position, and that's absolutely fine. We want to hear from you. So let's do that right after this.
They say fortune can change lives, but does it change who you are? From Engotu to a Durban, twins born into struggle, now with millions in their hands. But with wealth comes division. One twin raised with responsibility, the other treated like royalty. Two paths, one dream, Maskandi greatness. brand new telenovela, Amalanga Wafani, where money, family, and betrayal collide. Starts April 2025, weekdays at 6:30, only on SABC 1, Mzansi for sure.
El Clasico is here. Barcelona takes on Real Madrid in the Copa del Rey final. And you can catch every moment on S3 or stream live on SABC+. Watch two of the world's biggest teams fight for Spanish football's ultimate trophy. Don't miss out on the heart-pounding action. Head to sabcplus.com to register right now. Or tune into S3 on Saturday 26 April at 9:30 p.m. for the live broadcast. This is the Copa del Rey final. Barcelona versus Real Madrid. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport, your home of great football.
For the love of the game.
Road crashes cause injuries and death. Take your safety seriously and the safety of others. Fatigue is a silent killer. If you're on the long road, take a break every 2 hours or every 200 kilometers. Remember, buckle up and stay within the speed limit. Don't overtake on a barrier line. Travel during the day, it's safer. Road safety is everyone's responsibility. Ensure that you and your loved ones arrive alive. This message is brought to you by the National Department of Transport.
Save and win a car with Spar, for real. Stand to win one of 50 fiery red Hyundai Grand i10 sedans. Buy any participating products and swipe your rewards card to enter. Get 200-gram Jacob's Cronon coffee jar or 230-gram refill for $144.99, plus 400 megs free data on Spar Mobile. Or 1 liter Spar Long Life Milk, 6-pack for $89.99, plus 200 megs free data on Spar Mobile. Price is valid until 6 May, while stocks last. T's and C's apply.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Okay, so let's get a sense of, your pulse. What does your pulse tell you? Fingers on the pulse, indeed. Jack Bloom certainly has a view, of course. He's not just a caller. He's the Gauteng Shadow Health MEC, but he, as a caller, wants to comment on the Tembisa Hospital issue. Jack, good chatting to you. Hi.
Good afternoon, Ashraf.
Thank you, indeed. Right, you have a position. Tell me, what is it?
Well, look, two fires within the space of a couple of days is very suspicious, and the DA is particularly concerned that we have a professional and swift investigation, and the possibility of arson cannot be ruled out. We don't want a situation like happened with Schadenheke at Johannesburg Hospital, where they took years before the police investigation was made public, and there they did indeed suspect arson. So I think that we need to have a professional investigation, and we need to know who was behind this. And if there was negligence, I think there need to be consequences. But unfortunately, not a single one of Gauteng's 37 public hospitals is actually fully compliant with Occupational Health and Safety Act. And that's of great concern. Our patients and staff should be safe in our hospitals. And Tembisa Hospital is notorious for corruption. The Beta Deokaran was murdered because she tried to stop what was going on there. So, there are suspicions, and we need to know the truth, and there needs to be consequences.
How do you ensure there's consequences?
Well, first of all, do a proper investigation, then act on it. But you know what happened at the Schadenheke Johannesburg Hospital? I think the CEO should have been fired, but she wasn't. In fact, if there were arsonists, as they strongly suspect, none of them have been apprehended, so there's no consequence whatsoever. So at Schadenheke, a major hospital, terrible damage. I think patients have died or suffered because, the consequences of that fire, and no consequences whatsoever for anybody's negligence. And I think there was negligence there, because the hospital wasn't compliant, and yet no action was taken against anybody at that hospital. Now let's see what's going to happen at Tembisa Hospital. The people are already suffering there now because the hospital is now only very partially functional, and it's going to take ages before they rebuild that section, and the DA is going to make sure that there's no corruption involved in that, because that's what happens all the time in this department, unfortunately.
Okay, you've made your point. Let's see how that carries through. Thanks for calling in, Jack Bloom, the Gauteng Shadow Health MEC. Right, Simpiwe, you're in Ramsar. Go for it.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and to the listeners. Look, all I can say is tough times ahead with respect to these rumors and allegations of assassination that are flying at the moment. And all that we have to do is just read a book called Gangster State. But I think what we need to do is just to learn from what happened in the past. And I think some of us are realizing, or some people are realizing, that it's very possible to be to be a foot in the door and then not get leadership. And I think what we are starting to see is a race to remove the current leader with all sorts of allegations, so that at least some kind of marathon can then start. But it's a riddle. It's a manufactured riddle. There is no way an assassination attempt could ever have happened. I think it's a riddle, and we know where it's going and where it's coming from.
So when you say, when you say there's no way it could have happened, you're one of many people who are saying the same thing, okay? But you do know, and we chatted about it earlier on, there was that police investigation that confirmed, they don't know the full details, but they have confirmed that there are clear signs of bullet shells being shot at the car. So you just dismissed that?
You just said it. Shot at, assassination, where is the equal sign, right? So you may have a lunatic who takes out a gun. I don't know what he would have smoked. A lunatic takes a gun and shoots at. But to then equate it to an assassination, and I just think it's far-fetched. We know where it's going, and I think it's going to destroy the country if we start on this bad footing. Still a little way out for 2029. I think we need cool heads. We need to run the country right now.
Okay, let's see how that plays out.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that call, Simpiwe in Ramsach. Let's get further comments. And one of the issues that were picked up was, I just want to sort this out. Let me see. The issue of the laptop conversation we had earlier on.
Good evening, Ashraf, and good evening to the film business. Ashraf, this story of the 2 laptops and 2 million that was spent on it. I think we South Africa, we love processes so much, and instead of actually saying, someone from the office saying, guys, we haven't spent so much money on laptops, this is how much you spent, this is a lie. It doesn't have to go through internal investigation, 3 weeks. Someone should have said, after 2 days, guys, this is what's happening. Whatever it's being reported in the media is fake. It does not have to be so long for us to declare the truth. Thank you.
Okay, got that. Doesn't take so long. Well, let's see. What about things happening in Burkina Faso and their leader, Ibrahima Traoré?
Good afternoon, sir. Mr. Maalim Randek, Ashraf. I just worry about the guy from Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré, because a lot of Western and colonies, they don't like that guy, because he's building as a country, but it's a lot of now fear, maybe they want to kill him, whatever. I'm not wishing, but the enemy, when you're winning, they don't like you, because that guy is building that country, really. I admire him. I'm from Somalia, grew up South Africa, but he's building that country. I'm Western, French, and UK, and all that, the colony, they don't like. Because if someone winning Africa, they don't like. Similar when they kill Muammar Gaddafi, he's going the same route, but they will never touch his time, because Africa are united now this time. They can see that guy. Let's talk reality. Burkina Faso is going up.
Burkina Faso is going up, but questions are now, how safe would he be, right? Okay, let's get back to the other issue that we touched on earlier, ongoing, Mashatile.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I think the assassination attempt on Mashatile is possible, considering the oncoming elective conference, and considering the fact that Mashatile is seen as being radical by the opposition. So anything is possible. Let's wait for the official statement from the presidency. Bafana Khumalo in Memel.
Okay, well, that's the sober way. Let's wait for a statement. Let's wait for the investigation and confirmation of that, isn't it?
Hello, Ashraf and the team. This is my first time interacting with you, but I always listen all the time, every day during the week, right? On the issue of the deputy president, I would just say that the ANC must just collapse under its own weight. Whatever's happening right now, we don't care. That previous caller, honestly, he had some points in there, but yeah, we really don't care.
Another person that says we don't care. All right, but thanks for calling in or interacting with me for the first time. Make it more than once so that we can learn from each other all the time, isn't it? Right, here's another.
Hi, Ashraf. This is Kagiso from Afike. Look, we live in a country where people do crazy things, you know. Crime does not have to make sense. right? We've got motorists that their cars are being stoned every day when they are traveling and all that. So it's possible that someone can shoot at the deputy president's motorcade, you know. It doesn't, whether we like him or not, but it's a possibility that exists, you know, given the circumstances we find ourselves in this country.
So that's an interesting one. Again, there's this other argument to say, yes, if he was shot at, fine. It doesn't mean there was an assassination attempt. It could be someone who, unrelated to his own position, who just wanted to shoot someone. That does often happen in South Africa. But wouldn't they recognize his car? Let's do that.
Ashraf, we don't care about these guys, Abu Mashatil. They put themselves in there, president and a deputy. They put themselves in there. We did not put them there. We're going to get rid of them in 2019. We don't care. We're tired of their drama. We are gallivanting right now, gathering each other to get rid of ANC. We are tired of their drama.
But I mean, thanks, Keith, but you're conflating the issues. I mean, you don't care about him as a politician in terms of voting him out. I mean, that's your prerogative. It's absolutely fine. But the question at the moment is not that. You have your chance to do what you want to do about voting him out. But right now the question is, was he shot at? And was the intention, why do you shoot at someone? I mean, seriously, why does anybody shoot at someone?
Hello, Mr. Ashraf. Yeah, this is James. Yeah, in Cape Town. According to the shooting of Mr. Mashatile, it may be a fake because there would be lots of shooting back from where the shooting came from. So with me, I think it may be a fake because there was not any shooting, and the car which was shot, it is never shown to the people. Thank you.
Right, there's another one on that issue. Let's get to another one, and it's amazing how much. Now, let me just. There's some gremlin in the system. My apologies for that. Let me just see if I can get Keith to sort it out from his side, because I can't quite play that one there. No, can't do that. Let's just see if Keith can do it from that side before we wrap up the show, because there's one or two WhatsApps that I want to play. But let me just tell you, just while we're trying to sort that one out on that side, welcome your calls, welcome the fact that we clearly, you know, I have an opinion, you have yours, we have others. Welcome all of that. And like the fact that we can get on air and, you know, make a point and then give your reasons why you make the point, and then we agree and we disagree and we walk away and we both learn from each other. And I think by and large that's what many people do here on the National Pulse, and I really appreciate that. Let's see if I can play this. No, I think there's just some. Okay, called it frozen machinery. My apology for that. So I can't play. There's a few voice notes that were sent, and I feel horrible. I feel terrible about it. Right, but that's just about the show. So I have to just thank Oliver Dixon, who hosted the show for the 3 days. I was away for 5 days, but the 3 days that he hosted this show, I think, I hope he gave you what you required in getting your sense of what's the feel for the National Pulse. But we'll do it all again tomorrow from myself and the team, and you, an integral part of that team. At 6 o'clock, let's get the news. Here's Kolofelo.
Thanks, Ashraf. Top stories. The SAWA Yellow Level 4 issued for KZN, and Africa advances in internet penetration. Good evening. Disaster management teams are on high alert following a yellow level 4 warning of disruptive rains that could lead to flooding in most parts of KZN. According to the South African Weather Service, the severe weather conditions will persist until Friday. Spokesperson for the Provincial Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Senzelwe Mzila.
The affected areas include Abakulusi, Alfred Duma, Inkoslanga Libalele, Escott, Danhauser, Edumbe, Emadlangeni, Emthonjaneni, eThekwini, Impendle, Maphumulo, Bofana, Msinga, Mthonjaneni,